All right, good evening. Welcome to the West Ada School Board meeting. We will all, for first item of agenda, we'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join us. All right, we had, just to get us started here, I think the board, you guys have just a recently updated agenda, and we're going to need to take an action. We had one item, or we have an action item on here. We need to appoint a temporary clerk from this board meeting. So with that'd be our first item on the agenda. And we'll appoint now because we'll have a reappointment in the reorganization session in January. So it's just for this. Actually, it should be through the end of this year is what we would appoint through, just in case we have to have any special or emergency meetings between now and the end of the year. So with that, I would entertain any motions. Trustee Buffy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would make a motion that we move to appoint Nikki Shippers for the remainder of the 2021 year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we appoint Nikki Shippers as the temporary clerk through the end of the 2021 calendar year. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right. That was quick and easy. Painless, right, Nikki? Next item up on the agenda is the superintendent's update. Dr. Bob.
Madam Chair, trustees, thank you so much. I want to start out by just wishing everybody happy holidays. I know that our staff is anxiously awaiting a little well-deserved time off. They've been working really hard in their schools, and so the greatest level of appreciation goes out to all the staff that are making our schools run each and every day. This past week, I was able to meet with various stakeholder groups, parents, students, classified staff, and certificated staff, with really the intent of understanding what their perspective of our daily operations of our schools and the vision of our schools, and to really find a foundation for some areas of strength and areas of growth. And so those were really productive meetings. We have second meetings scheduled in February, and then we'll finish out the school year with a couple more meetings with those groups. So I appreciate all those people that are serving on that committee. We also have 27 of our teachers that are currently serving, are seeking their leadership credential, going through our cohort through U of I, and so it's been a really positive program. I want to thank the people that we have our own staff that are teaching those classes here through West Ada, and so a lot of promising young leaders within that cohort. So thank you to those people. It takes a lot to tell your family to hold tight and make dinner on their own, maybe some microwave dinners, but be able to the willingness to be able to lead in our district is much appreciated. And then I want to congratulate Jonathan Gillen and his team. They received the budget award from ASBO this year. We were just notified, and so congratulations to the entire team for all of their work. And then last but not least, is just to highlight, we were able to, I see two of our new board members in here, and they spent the day with us Thursday, just kind of going through an orientation, understanding how operations work within the district, budget process, to really give them a good glimpse of the way things work here, get them to know some of the individuals. They met with our regional directors. They met with our chief academic officer, chief financial officer, human resources, and myself. So it was just an opportunity. Hopefully we bombarded them with as much information as possible, but we're looking forward to the onboarding process here coming in January.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Dr. Bubb? Dr. Bob, I wanted to just highlight, you had shared with me, and I don't know if the whole board knows or not, but when you went to form those different listening committees, one, we asked you to do that as part of kind of the starting process of you becoming superintendent. So first of all, we appreciate you getting that put into action. The second was how did we get those advisory committees set up? Like who got involved? And You want to answer that, or I can just share what you shared with me. You asked the building principals to help us with, pulling parents from all of our schools across the district and students, and then obviously staff and classified have some organizational structures. But and so I just thought that was a really nice way of getting a good set of across the district feedback from the different constituencies. So really appreciate that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we also have a quick video. Ken has been amazing for us. If we can just take 10 seconds to, and it's probably 40 seconds, but this kind of just highlights some of the great things that are going on in West Ada. I think it's important to reflect on these items. We started out the parent meeting by showing this and got a lot of feedback. So thank you, Ken, for everything you've brought to our team, and you can kind of click on that video.
Yeah, and I don't know if the board has actually ever met Ken. So Ken, could you stand up and just say your name and introduce yourself a little?
Hi there, I am Ken Hyde. I'm the newest member of the communications team, so working with HR and happy to be here and assist you all in any way I can.
Yeah, and the other thing, I just happened to be at a Owyhee High School basketball game, and our AD shared this video with me. And we have a lot of different ways of communicating, but the team in here, and I didn't know this, it just got by luck of the draw, they were working on how do we share our message better and how do we communicate better. And Ken got on it with Nikki, and they created this video. And with the new reader boards that we had donated at the schools, they can share this at sporting events as well as other events like the parent advisory. So when I saw it, it just was cool, and I thought you guys might want to see it as well. So.
At West Ada, we are building something big. We are West Ada.
Yeah, Ken did that in like a day, I think. So thank you for letting us share that, Superintendent Bob. I think, is there any more to the update? Oh, you're good? Okay. All right. Then this is like the fun part of the night right here. Not that you aren't fun as well. We have a couple different spotlights, and so we'll start off with the first one here. We've got Kaylee Philippi, I think, did I say that right? Okay, Youth Commissioner for the Solid Waste Advisory Commission. So just highlighting some student involvement in our community. And Kaylee, welcome.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm Kaylee Philippi. I'm a senior at Rocky Mountain High School. And this past October, I was appointed by the Mayor of Meridian to be the newest Youth Commissioner on the Solid Waste Advisory Commission. I'll be calling it SWAC because it's just a little bit easier. And so it consists of 9 members, and it's 1 youth member and then 8 adults. And then there's 2 ex officio members. One is a councilwoman, and one's our public services like representative, which is the waste transportation in Meridian. And I'm just really honored to have this position because I was appointed by the mayor, Robert Simonson himself, and that's just a really big honor for me. Kind of what it does is we kind of focus on what we can do to kind of better promote waste disposal in our community and in our city. And something that we're working on right now is we're kind of like adjusting our like the grant criteria for the CRF, which is the Community Recycling Fund. And it's pretty cool. You can apply for grants and you can get money that it's like giving recycled materials a second life, as well as like supporting the community. So they've built like playgrounds, parks, recycling bins made out of recycled materials. It's pretty cool, like kind of a nerd moment, but it's pretty cool. And so we're like kind of looking at like kind of like the grant criteria and kind of what those kind of requirements would be to apply for that grant. And kind of what I want to do with this position is kind of see, because I represent the Meridian youth, so I kind of want to see what we can do to kind of get that outreach to our youth, whether it be at like skate parks or like in our schools or something, to kind of make sure the youth is promoting proper waste disposal in our schools, or like just around the community that's focused at the youth, because that's who I represent at the end of the day. That's why they have me sit on a commission, is so that not only all of Meridian residents are being involved, but also the youth, because truly we are the future of this city and this country. So it's pretty important that we have that kind of representation on our commissions. So yeah, it's a really big honor, and I just wanted to kind of close it out. I just want to say thank you guys for having me, and I appreciate you guys so much. I know this year's been kind of tumultuous, and you guys are pretty awesome, so I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate you. It's pretty cool, that kind of community engagement, so thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you.
You're doing great. You can bring your sign, your commissioner sign next time, set it right in front. Did you have something?
No, I was going to put it on the next.
Oh, okay. Well, then, Dr. Bubb, why don't you go with the next one?
So that was Kaylee. Now we're going to move to Kylie. Kylie, if you could please come to the podium. Kylie is a senior at Eagle High School and the current National High School Rodeo Queen for the National High School Rodeo Association, an organization dedicated to the development of sportsmanship, horsemanship, and character through the sport of rodeo across the United States and in Canada and Mexico. Kylie is here tonight to share a couple things with us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Bubb. Yes, my name is Kylie Whiting. I'm a senior at Eagle High School, and I've been enrolled in the West Ada School District, actually before it was called the Meridian School District, for 9 years now. I'm so honored to be here. I appreciate you guys having me. I brought along my good friend Jada June Totten. She's the Idaho High School Rodeo Association student president, so she's also very prevalent in the NHSRA and the in the Idaho rodeo. So she's going to talk a little bit about the history of the NHSRA and what it means to us. Go ahead.
So in 1949, a Texas school administrator struggled to keep his students' grades up because they were busy competing in rodeo. He founded the National High School Rodeo Association to provide an opportunity for students to compete while maintaining their education. Years later, the National High School Rodeo has become a nonprofit organization and the world's largest youth rodeo organization. It contains over 13,000 members worldwide from the US, Canada, Mexico, New Zealand, and Australia. Their scholarship foundation has paid out almost $2 million in scholarships. There is a junior high division from 5th to 8th graders and high school division from 9th to 12th grade. High schoolers must be enrolled and have 70% or higher in their classes in order to compete.
Yeah, so as you can see there, those rules having to have our grades up are very similar to similar rules that we have here in the West Ada School District. As if you were to play basketball or football, you have to have at least a C. So this association really allows and incentivizes us to keep our grades up and continue our education. I'm going to go through the rodeo events because there are quite a few of them, and a lot of people may wonder what we do. So the list of rodeo events are barrel racing, pole bending, goat tying, tie-down roping, saddle bronc riding, bareback riding, team roping, steer wrestling, breakaway roping, cow cutting, reining cow horse, bull riding, and last but not least, the queen contest. I personally compete in barrel racing, pole bending, reining cow horse, and of course the queen contest. So the unique thing about this is if you'll see other rodeo queens throughout the valley, but the High School Rodeo Association is super unique because we also, us queens, compete in other rodeo events along with the queen contest. Jada will list her.
I compete in the barrel racing, pole bending, goat tying, breakaway roping, and the team roping.
Okay, so we have the NHSRA, but also aside from that, the IHSRA is the Idaho High School Rodeo Association, and that's a branch off of the NHSRA. And the thing that's so unique about the Idaho High School Rodeo Association that you may not know, but it's made up of 9 districts. Jada and I are personally part of District 2, and most of your West Ada school students that are enrolled in West Ada are also in District 2. It's the largest district in the state of Idaho. It also is the most populated. And they take the top 6 from each district competitor, bring them to the state finals, and then from there they compete for the top 4 places to go to nationals. And like we said earlier, nationals is actually a worldwide competition, so we're bringing in kids from all over the world. And this year it's in Gillette, Wyoming, and I personally competed in Lincoln, Nebraska, representing Miss Idaho High School Rodeo Queen, so I also do carry that title along with the National High School Rodeo Queen. So I competed against 43 girls, all from Canada, Mexico, New Zealand, and Australia, representing the state of Idaho, and I had the honor of winning the national title, and now my duty of that has been to travel across the United States. So far, I just got back from Las Vegas actually this week, and just promoting the sport of rodeo, doing what I love, showing people the great things that we have to offer and the fun it gives you and the joy it brings us. So that is my role as a rodeo queen. Another thing too, she's going to touch a little bit on the impact that the NHSRA has had through people and professional rodeo athletes.
So with Kylie saying she just was in Las Vegas, there was a rodeo down there called the NFR. It's called the National Finals Rodeo, and they take the top 15 and out of all these pro rodeo people that travel across the nation, and they have to compete for a world title. So within all these people that are competing for a world title, 90% of them come from the NHSRA. And this just shows like the opportunity and advancement the NHSRA provides for the kids.
Alrighty, and I'm just going to finish off by explaining a little bit about what I did to win this title and the pageant process. So, like I said earlier, we're part of District 2, so my role in getting to the national title was to win districts. So I won my District 2 contest, and then I moved forward to Idaho. And so I competed at the state finals where I won Miss Idaho, and then 2 weeks later I went to Lincoln, Nebraska and competed for nationals. So the national pageant, or all three pageants really, in high school rodeo consist of categories that you compete in. So those categories consist of horsemanship. I did a pattern with my horse, and so I had to drive my horse actually 20 hours to Lincoln. That was fun. I did a speech, a prepared speech, talking about my state or anything rodeo related. We did impromptu speeches, so they ask you questions on stage and then you have to reply. We did a personal interview with judges, and we were also judged on our appearance, our personality, our rodeo knowledge, and we also took a written test on the entire NHSRA rulebook. And so these opportunities and these events within the Rodeo Queen contest really provide a foundation for young girls when it comes to rodeo queening, and a foundation of public speaking skills, interview skills, and just even overall personal relations, public relations, communication skills. And so that's why I love to emphasize the goodness of Rodeo Queen contests. I love to share what I do and my passion with other young girls, because I am a role model to young girls. When I was little, I actually got into rodeo queening through an older rodeo queen. And so I just love to be that for the younger generation and a voice, and also just promoting the sport of rodeo and the sport we love. Is there any questions that you guys have for us regarding the sport of rodeo or the NHSRA?
Trustee Kloppenstein.
Thank you very much. I've never been to a rodeo where they did the barrel racing. But could you tell me a little bit about that? Because I'm assuming, is that one of your more favorite sports? Or?
Oh, yeah. So that event really gets your adrenaline going. Oh, my gosh. You could ask my mom. She's always holding her breath while I'm on my horse. So barrel racing, they have 3 barrels set up in the arena, and they're all evenly distanced, so there's no bias when it comes to other competitors. And they also have an eye, and that times the horse. So you're racing against the clock. And it's really, I mean, when you're watching a barrel racing pattern, you see it, you just think, oh, this horse is just running around. But there's a lot of technicalities that go behind barrel racing when it comes to, so when I'm training my horse to go around those barrels, I'm doing slow work. I'm putting their feet exactly where I need them to be in order for that turn to be as quick as possible. And so it's really a race against the clock. Miss Jada June has actually made it to the national high school finals rodeo in barrel racing. She's really good at it. It's a very fun sport, though. We love it.
Well, it's very impressive, and you're so well spoken, so
thank
you
you
for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys, and we appreciate everything you're doing in this unsettling times with these circumstances. Thank you again for having us.
Thank you. Congratulations to both of you. All right. Do you want to introduce the next?
Madam Chair, trustees, I'd like to just take a minute to acknowledge Trustee Buffy and Trustee Kloppenstein as their board terms come to an end. Trustee Buffy was elected to West Ada Board in November of 2020, or was selected to the West Ada Board in November of 2020 as a Zone 3 representative. Trustee Kloppenstein was elected to the board in June of 2016 as a Zone 1 representative. Board service is one of the toughest volunteer roles, and each of you took on your board duties with dedication, grace, and seriousness. I'm lucky enough to have worked with both these individuals to know how much each of them contribute to the West Ada School District every day. I thank you both on behalf of West Ada School community for your time and service. I am most grateful for your active leadership and judicious stewards of our district. Thank you both very much.
Before we do that, I think just because usually trustees like to say a few things about their colleagues, I would open it up for the rest of the board. Well, that means Rusty and Renee, I guess, or, no, I'm kidding. Trustee Klopstein, you and Trustee Buffy can also speak. So, yeah, go, Trustee Kofelt. Well, who's gonna start? You go.
No, I'd just like to say, you know, I appreciate so much of the, being the newest person on this board and stepping in at the time that I did. It was huge to just have the welcoming attitude that not only the entire board had, but I had the pleasure of meeting individually before my first meeting and having coffee with Sheena and coffee with Ed, and they were super gracious. And that was huge, because stepping into this at the time that I did, it was an interesting time. And so I just appreciate your professionalism. I appreciate your friendship, and I wish you well in whatever the next endeavor is, because I know there will be one, because you're both very community service oriented. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Ozuna?
You know, you both stepped into West Ada in difficult times for different reasons. I'm gonna be really fast, I'm not emotional, but we don't always agree, but there's always mutual respect. There's friendship. I feel like we have, you know, just really, we're family up here to do the right thing for our students and the right thing for our staff and our community, and I am so proud to have been your colleague for all this time. Thank you.
You guys can go last. How's that? Boy, I didn't prepare anything because I didn't think about this, but I want to just, Trustee Buffy, to the idea that anybody would want to join a school board in the middle of a pandemic is beyond me, but that just shows how much you cared about what was going to happen to kids in this district. And I don't know if I could have done it. And so I have always, for both you and obviously we're going to keep Trustee Kofelt for a little while, but there's so much respect for doing that, because that's a pretty selfless act. And we are definitely going to miss your viewpoint. You see things from a different view than most of the rest of us. And that causes me to think, and I really appreciate that, because changing our thinking or looking at things from multiple viewpoints is how we make the best decisions. So I'm really going to miss you. And Trustee Kloppenstein, boy, we're going to lose a whole bunch of knowledge when you walk out the door, because you and Trustee Ozuna here combined, I think, might actually have more knowledge than most of us on this bench. And just how much service that you have done. I mean, I think, I don't know, it's true, you said you guys both stepped in it tumultuous times. Last time it wasn't a pandemic, it was a changeover of 4 of the 5 board members, which is probably, I don't know, you'd have to tell me, but almost as crazy as being in the middle of a global pandemic. And to just do it with like kind of just resolve and fortitude to just keep going and going and going, and just pushing what you thought was right. And I just have always respected that about you. So thank you so much for your service. So which one of you wants to go first? Trustee Buffy.
Madam Chair, I'm going first because I did not bring gifts, so I'm not going to let him make me look bad. So I'm going to go first. I'm not following that act.
You can claim credit for half of them. Just
Thank
said
you.
that it's from you, Ed's bringing it for you.
It was an honor and privilege to represent Zone 3. It was crazy, though, too. I don't know what I was thinking, and I'll just say that, but it was an honor, and I have nothing but respect for the board and for the district. My kids will continue to go to school in West Ada, and I will continue to be a part of the parent population. But I wish the new board an abundance of success for the best interest of our students, and I'll be, watching, but I get to watch from the sidelines, so I'm looking forward to being able to spend more time with my kids. So, but I'm gonna miss you guys and miss the district. So, thank you.
Well, I have to prepare because I'm a horrible speaker. So, but I just want to say first, thank you very much to the teachers of this district for your tireless work over these past 2 years. I really want you to know that what we've seen from here, what you've done, just makes us proud because you've always put kids first, and I really want the teachers to know that. Together with our janitorial staff who always made sure the buildings were clean, and our nurses who kept us safe, and our food staff who ensured that no child went hungry, and that was a serious problem, and our bus drivers who always showed up. You are all true heroes of this district, and you're my heroes, and I am humbled to have been part of your organization. I also want to acknowledge all the administrative staff, but especially Mr. Brett Heller, Jonathan Gillen, past Superintendent Marianne Rannells, and current Superintendent Derek Bubb. I know what you've been through, and you've been the public face of this district, and you've made great personal sacrifices, but you've endured it with dignity, and I'm so proud of all of you. Also, Trustee Buffy and Kofelt, you're insane, what it comes down to. You volunteered one of the most difficult times this district has seen in its history, and you were both brave, in my view. Trustee Ozuna, you sacrificed so much to be able to represent our community. People have no idea, and you've done it with kindness and professionalism. I am so proud to have served with you. And Chairwoman Johnson, you've led this board with distinction, and especially made the point of reaching out to me and supporting me during this past year, especially when you did not have to. I want to say thank you. I am deeply humbled. So, to this community, solutions start in classrooms. So if you really want to make a change, you reach out to a teacher, and it doesn't matter who, a teacher, and ask, what do you need to do to help our kids? And whatever that problem might be, solving that problem will always make our district better. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much. It's been 5 wonderful years. Thank you.
All right, we'll open them up. Let's see what you got there.
Oh, well, before I do that, I've got gifts of my own. So, Renee, that's for Renee. This is for Rusty. Please do not open. They are not to be opened now. Sheena. And thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Well, you guys open yours. I want to see what you got.
Okay.
Well, we actually know,
It's
but.
like a clock or something. Oh, what's a clock?
So
Well,
you
like
can
I'm
show-
retiring. Wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much.
It's for service, so
Yeah.
thank you. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. I think we still have one more, right? Did you skip on purpose?
Yeah, I was trying to.
You want a little cheer at the end?
I could use it. I didn't know we were going to go through all that.
Well, before we end, I just want to say, I don't think their thanks is enough, but we'll see you a little bit more, and hopefully we'll continue to see you after January 1st, no matter what. So thank you both, and we'll go and get a little joyful music coming in here in the next spotlight.
Madam Chair, trustees, to ring in the holiday spirit as we approach Christmas and the winter break, Leigh Faulkner, vocal instructor from the music department at Idaho Fine Arts Academy, has worked with the IFA vocal majors to perform a cappella for us all, and I could not be more excited.
You guys can move in the front. We're going to go stand down here.
Hey, hi, we're the middle school vocal majors from Idaho Fine Arts Academy. We've got 3 tunes, holiday tunes for you tonight. We're really excited to be here. And my name is Lee Falconer, and I'm the vocal teacher there at Idaho Fine Arts Academy.
Dashing through the snow, one horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring, spirits bright, what fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. A day or two, I thought I'd take a ride. Soon Miss Fanny Bride, seated by my side. Horse was lean and lame, that's his lot. He got into a drifted bank and then we got upside. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey! The next piece we're going to sing is called Huelye, but if you have watched Frozen more than 4 or 5 times, you might recognize it from the movie Frozen. Na hey ya na ya Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring for you and your kin. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Oh, bring us some figgy pudding. Oh, bring us some figgy pudding. Oh, bring us some figgy pudding and bring some right here. Good tidings we bring for you and your kin. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. So bring some right here. Good tidings we bring for you and your kin. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Happy Holidays!
Wait, before you guys go, real quick. Usually in these situations, there's not just a few people, there's the kids and they do a really, really great job. I don't want to take that away. But there's also some parents behind you that do some really great job as well. And so we just want to say thank you to the parents for bringing your children down here tonight and letting us enjoy them. You guys set the bar high. I think it's Christmas concert week, so thank you very much. All right, well, next item up on our agenda is work session time. So with that, we will move into the work session room and work on board protocols. And we'll be back at the end of the work session. So thank you very much.
language works to have the most senior board member start the meeting. It's worked well for us to have the clerk do it. Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to do that?
I thought about it, but I was thinking about the situation when you guys came in, and that would have been really detrimental, to have that be, because there's only one senior member, and that was contentious. So I think the clerk actually is pretty good.
Thank you. Good to know. So careful what you say.
Okay.
Yeah.
On my comment there, and, you know, I'll be the first to say there's definite pros and cons to this. I threw it out there for discussion because the school district that my kids went to, this was something that school board did, and so it was just a natural rotation. Now, sometimes there were people that just were adamant about, I don't feel comfortable doing a certain role, I don't want to do a certain role, and so obviously it wasn't like, no, you're going to do it. There was workarounds for it, but I kind of put it out there just to see what the group thought. I do recognize that there's some downsides to it, and that is there's some people that maybe want to be involved at a certain level, but they just don't feel comfortable at another level, and so this kind of a rotation wouldn't be comfortable. I also understand that there's sometimes benefits in having folks, you know, get more comfortable, spend a little bit more time in a position, and it helps things be a bit more efficient. So I get that part too. So, but it was just something they did at the school district I was at, and I thought I would see what the group thought, or if anybody had thoughts on it.
We did look up Idaho Code 33506 just to see exactly what the language states, and it does state that the school board has to elect a chair and a vice chair every year. So I think even if you had a succession plan, it would still have to go through a formal nomination vote situation. I mean, so you still would have to go through the voting nomination, that process.
Yeah, so thinking that through, this could be a protocol as is typical, but the board would still have to elect that position every single year. Yeah.
And generally through the past, we've had it's generally been a 2-year, you know, thing, you know? So it's like, exactly, chair and vice chair, it's usually a 2-year thing, because, I mean, obviously you do the first year and you're just getting your wings underneath you, and then after that, you're supposed to be pro. So, and then it's like, and then you can build that next person to come into the role if you want to, or those people, you know, so.
Yeah.
But it's just been kind of the whisper behind people, so it doesn't have to be that way. It's not written down.
One of the things about Idaho is that it takes a little while to build some relationships in this state. Once you have them if you do it right. And one of the things that I've learned in this role in the last year is that the chair role really has a pretty big impact outside of this board, with other board chairs, with the Idaho School Board Association, with the governor's office, with the superintendent, obviously. But so I would worry about making that changeover every year, because you don't get that longevity and that knowledge. That actually means that the district loses out in the end, because you don't get those conversations, and those conversations are really important. So that'd be my only concern with having it be an automatic changeover.
No, and that's a very valid point. That's definitely a potential downside to this sort of a rotation, kind of that efficiency of the board, and so I totally understand that piece.
The other thing that I think is that you're, and you can speak to, the chair is only as good as the board supports them. So if you elect every year, and you go through that election process, that helps the chair be good. And if it's not working out, the board has the ability to make that change. And I kind of think that election process keeps that check and balance in place.
I'm good with keeping it the way it is. That was kind of my purpose, is I wanted to get other people's thoughts on it, and there's some very valid points. And at the end of the day, it's a little bit of semantics, because we would still have to
Yeah, I
go
didn't
through
know
the
that.
voting part, so, yeah.
Well, it's really good that you asked the question, because I think it's a good one for us to have some conversation about, think about. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts? I don't want to, I'm glad you asked it.
Oh, yeah, no, that's why I kind of put it out there. Hey, thoughts? It wasn't like, you need to do this. I appreciate the feedback.
Any other thoughts? You guys say whatever you want.
No, I agree. Well, I think we need to comply with the statute and have an election each year. And I think it would be okay to do, I mean, you wanted to do the succession planning, but you would still have to go through the motions of doing the election. But no, I like Amy's thoughts on it. I think that it's good. For one, it takes time, and people need time to get comfortable, and just being a trustee in general, and then in the leadership roles. So I think that it's good. If they're doing a good job and they're growing, the board wants to keep them in that leadership role.
I mean, generally, the board knows who's going to be the board chair the next year anyway. I mean, it's just, people, things. They're going to talk, it's like 5 people too, so. No, I think it makes sense what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense, actually. It's just, I don't think you have to put it down. In fact, if a board's working well, you definitely don't have to put it down paper.
So I don't know if there's any other discussions on this particular one. I think we're good. I've adopted the changes kind of as written.
And this is kind of, and just for clarity, this is how we've been operating in the past.
Mr. Howard, quick question on if for some reason the chair role becomes vacant.
Yep.
In Idaho code, do we have to elect a new chair, or can we move the vice chair? Is that called?
Is that in that one? I can't remember. I believe you can move the vice chair up, but I have to.
Because I think that's new for us as well.
Yeah.
It is. We had that.
It's my understanding that the vice chair takes the position until there is an election of a chair.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
And that's how we kind of have, we have it written here that the vice chair shall become the chair, and then the board shall elect a vice chair. But I don't know that we don't have to necessarily do that.
But what happens if there's not a vice chair?
Right.
So maybe the vice chair would become chair to lead the meeting, and then we would elect a
temporary chair.
Yeah, and elect a new chair.
Do we need to add in the most senior board member if there isn't a vice chair?
That's how we handled it this year.
That's what happened,
We
yeah.
had vice chair, they didn't win.
Or we can roll back to the clerk and then be messy in that case.
You don't have a board member setting agendas in that case if you don't have somebody taking that role.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have somebody.
You have to have, yep.
Not that I want to go through all those scenarios again, but it's given us good examples to work from.
Yeah. I haven't looked it up, but I can see that.
I'll look it
now.
I'm trying to. See it.
Well, why don't we just do the language that, should the chair, office of the chair become vacant, the vice chair, or the vice chair, or some sort of language that makes some kind of seniority order, shall become chair, until the next meeting, and then the board shall elect a member for the unexpired term of the chair. So, which is kind of how we handled it this last time.
Last time?
Yeah.
have to draw straws if there's a tie?
So we had no vice chair and no board chair, and actually, there was a tie. Right? You guys were,
I swore him first.
oh, you swore in first? Okay.
Yeah,
So there
we
was-
did go back, and I think we had to go back and look at,
On the same day?
No,
no.
No, it's
no, different meeting.
like a week or so before.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything about it in statute right now.
Okay.
So how would you like that to read?
Is there just, for the aside, is there a downside to the vice chair just becomes the chair and then the way the language reads right now? And then the next meeting you,
The only challenge would be if you didn't have either, a chair or a vice chair, then you're gonna have to elect both, right? You're gonna have to,
Your vice chair doesn't ever want to be chair. So that's what I was thinking, just the next meeting. Vice chair still wants to be chair, the board just elects them. If they don't, then they could have somebody else.
That's really a shame, because that's, the vice chair role is the role where you should be
Yeah.
understanding how to become chair.
Yeah, I'm okay with that language as long as it's allowed in Idaho
Yeah.
code. I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure we didn't have to.
yeah, I don't see anything that says that this is not allowable. I mean, certainly what we can do in the interim, if the board ends up taking action on this tonight, is we can make sure that we have one more time, have legal counsel look at it and make sure they don't say, oh, here's an area where you've got an area hanging out, but I don't think we do. So the reading of the code. Next, little changes. It's always good when you have Trustee Ozuna doing a review on things. This entire section is really about somebody's term of office expiring, and yet we had words like election in there, which is, and this isn't an election, right? This is an appointment. There's not a nominated by board members type of situation. So she just helped catch some of those little clarifying things that needed to be clarified on that particular section.
Is that 120 days, is that code?
So the way it reads, yeah, I think when I went through after that is based on what is in code. We do have to fill it within 90 days. And then if we are unable to fill it within 90 days from within the zone that's open, then it says you could fill it at large. And then if you're not able to do that, then essentially the county commissioners get to decide who our board member is, so.
Can you pull up that section so we have that?
Yeah. So, let's see. So, after 90, if the Board of Trustees is unable to appoint from the zone, the board may appoint a person at large from within the boundaries of the school district to serve as trustee from the zone where the vacancy occurred. Otherwise, after 120 days, appointment shall be made by the Board of County Commissioners.
What's the, of home county if the district be a joint district?
So, the home county, if the district be a joint district, well, so for us, Ada County would still be the home county.
Don't we have a portion of Canyon County?
We do.
So that's what I'm
We
wondering.
do, but Ada County would be considered our home county because it's the majority of what we serve. So I think they would have, that's how I read it, is that they would have, Ada County Commissioners would have the jurisdiction to make that decision, not Canyon County.
Back on the manual, do we need to take out the elector and just any qualified candidate on the second bullet there?
Well,
Is that okay?
that is basically, in order to apply to be a board member, you have to be a qualified elector. You have to be qualified, you have to live in that zone. That's how it reads. But if you want to change the language, we certainly can. You have to basically be a qualified elector. I think that's the language that they actually use in here.
Yeah.
Days.
It's a school district elector.
It's not on in here, but, you know, they just say a person qualified to serve as trustee.
Well, 33501 says.
That's right.
Each trustee shall be a school district elector of his district and a resident of the trustee zone.
Yeah, that's right. That's where we pulled that. Thanks, Dave. We knew we invited you for a reason.
Exactly.
So I like the language qualified participant because in the instance where, not that often get ever happen to us, but in the instance where we can't find somebody from the zone, then it becomes qualified elector of the, or qualified person of the district.
There's your who. Those are okay.
Yeah, pull it out of the statutory language, whatever.
That is, the elector is the statute.
Go back to 33504.
Well, so I think,
Yeah, this one though is for when they are in.
well, this is the question, I guess, for, this does not actually articulate right now that if you're unable to fill it within the 90 days from within the zone, it doesn't have that additional language of the next step being to be able to qualify for an at-large person. So if you want to add that next step in here, I can certainly do that. If you were unable to fill within the zone in question, then you can expand and look at the whole district.
Which comes first, the zone in question or the 120 days?
The zone in question is to get within the 90.
Okay.
Between 90 and 120 is when you would potentially have to add, you could expand it to at-large, and if you aren't able to fill it at-large before 120, then the county commissioners get involved.
I think we should put it in there.
I would think it should be in there so that it matches statute.
Okay.
If you want that elector word to be changed to candidate?
Or just on the language that was in 33504.
If you want to change that other stuff, I'll pull up 33504. Sure. You remember the
Who's the qualified person?
Oh.
Elector makes it sound like you have to be a registered voter, and I don't know that you do. In our applicant process.
I think you do have to be registered.
Yeah,
I
that's,
thought so.
yeah.
But does it, so in our applicant, on the next page, it just says, oh, does he, I missed it.
So are we good with that language, or do we want to change?
Yeah, I think where possible, using statutory language just keeps it consistent.
There, to read it to you, Brett?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
How do you want to say it? Go ahead.
If the Board of Trustees is unable to appoint a trustee from the zone, vacated, comma, the Board of Trustees may appoint a person at large from within the boundaries of the school district to serve as the trustee from the zone where the vacancy occurs, period. Otherwise, comma, after 120 days.
That's what we have.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right.
And Brett, in the beginning of the sentence there, it's the Board of Trustees.
Fine. Yeah, it's probably a good word to have in there. Okay.
Also, backseat typers. That's where I did my best typing.
Me too.
Okay, so we feeling okay with it, about that? Okay. Really quickly, let me just. Now, as far as on the next, we have the actual application. I tried, what I did with the application itself is I took what we used last time, and it was an electronic application, and I just tried to put it into, here's what was within that application. We're not going to typically do a paper pencil. We've done an electronic recently, so this just gives the people an idea of what would be in that application, so the next time we run into that situation, we know what we want to have in there, but you could.
The way that it's copied over.
Yes.
The one part that I didn't like on the next page, it almost looks like we're looking for a felon.
I thought that same.
Yeah, I just, that.
Felons make great board members.
It's like you have to be all of these things and then.
Yes.
On the next page, on the.
Oh, I am. I've been,
I've been convicted of a felony. I mean, it almost looks like that's what we're
I
looking
have never
for.
been convicted of a felony.
Yeah, that's what it should say, that would be better.
And.
You're right, it does make it sound like.
And that is how the application read. It was intended to, if there was somebody that was there, then to get the reason, but.
Okay, so I've never been convicted of a felony. If no, but that's, the reason it was done that way is, then it's like, no, I have never been convicted, right? So that's why it was written that way. I think initially it was, basically, I have been, I have been convicted by a felony, yes.
It should say if yes, so if you're filling this out, you say I've never been. Right.
Would you say if I have been convicted?
But see, we don't need them to explain if they have never been convicted by it. We need them to explain if they have been.
Are they ineligible, or are they still eligible for?
They just have to disclose.
They have to disclose the situation.
Okay.
Because the felony involves a child.
I know we're trying to stay with the I am, but if you just ask, have you ever been convicted of a felony?
If yes, please explain.
Oh, yes, there you go.
Yeah. See? That's all you get. I'm exhausted.
And ever there, Brett.
Okay.
So actually, that's so the other one, was the spouse one, that one seemed odd to me. Like I am or my spouse is currently employed by the, wouldn't that disqualify you?
It does.
So we asked them that just to see if.
Some people have no idea what the actual qualifications are, so we ask the question, because then there's like, oh, thank you for applying, but you're disqualified because of this, but they don't even know that they're not allowed to be. We've had people apply before. I think even last time we were doing this, we had some people saying they were going to apply to be a board member, and we had to have the conversation with a few of them. You do realize you're disqualified because of your spouse. So it's just a way for us to address those. Okay, any other from that? Next section where there was a change was under school board meetings. Oh, go ahead.
Can we take out, unless you guys want to keep it, I'd like to take out Meridian School District language, AKA Meridian School District.
We've never been the Meridian School District, have we? We've always been like Special District Number 2.
Joint School District Number 2.
Just that whole.
Yeah, it's really, you could take Meridian School District out.
Yeah, Joint School District.
Yeah.
You've been in West Ada long enough.
Yeah.
But with Joint School District Number 2 is actually our
legal name.
It's our legal name.
Yep.
I think for this purpose, I think it's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you have to look it up on the state system, and then you have to find like, where is the, under joint school district?
Right?
I will also make sure that everybody knows that once we get,
Yeah.
once the content is kind of approved, Nikki and I can work together to make this a much better looking document. So it's, once it's posted to the web, it's all nice and pretty. But Nikki will make it look fantastic.
You know, all of the little.
No, just please do it. It's my favorite. Yeah. The next section under school board meetings, this was a suggestion by Renee, the red, just strike to decide, deliberate toward a decision on any matter and change it to transact the legal business of the school district through discussion and voting among members.
So is that really what a meeting is, though, in state statute? I thought a meeting was any time we got together with consensus. Just curious if there was, because we have special meetings, which would be like a party, right? Or a meeting is if we have, 3 or more board members, then that's basically a meeting, right?
Yeah, and that might be good to add in there, is anytime that you have, 3 or more board members present, maybe it's good to add that language.
That's the quorum.
Yeah.
Quorum language. Yeah, I actually don't think, so annual meeting, regular meeting, emergency meeting, and budget meeting and special meeting are all defined in Idaho code, right?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
The meeting definition that we have in there, I think, is something that we put together to kind of define. Well, yeah, just kind of summarize general meeting. And maybe, instead of calling it meeting defined, maybe we just have trustees may participate, so you can actually move it up above work session. Trustees may participate in board meetings via electronic means, that sentence there. And then a meeting, with the quorum language right after that, which is like a meeting the board is considered in a meeting when there are 3 or more board members present. Or something, whatever that definition is.
Statute reads it as a
So
quorum.
deleting from meeting defined all the way through on any matter, deleting all of that, right? Yeah, I agree with that.
Sometimes, though, there's no meeting minutes, if it's just a quorum.
Correct. Like when you guys go to Teacher of the Year, right? We announce a quorum because you guys are there, but there's no business being transacted.
Yeah.
So
Let's do this one first, and then let's talk about how to add the quorum posting quorum requirements, because that's a different topic.
So statute really only defines regular meeting and special meetings.
It does in the 74-206, it says a meeting, or 204, a meeting means the convening of a governing body of a public agency on the date fixed by law or rule to conduct the business of the agency. Oh, I'm sorry, to make it, that's wrong. A public agency to make a decision or to deliberate toward a decision on any matter.
Does it go into anything other than special meeting and?
It has meeting, regular meeting, and special meeting. It has 3 separate definitions.
Meeting, regular, okay.
Budget meetings in a different section of code. So you have to be really good about searching the entire code section to get all of the meetings that your opportunities we have. It's in another section of code.
Oh, no, I was talking about special meeting versus, it defines regular meeting and special meeting, it doesn't have.
Emergency.
That one does, though, right?
I don't, according to emergency meeting.
Emergency meeting, which is special meeting.
That's we have that, we use it.
Yeah, it's
in the
there.
open meeting law stuff.
Yeah, it's in the open meeting law manual, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it's not, I don't think it's an emergency meeting, it's when the board can meet. So it's when the board can meet in an event of an emergency without the 24-hour posting.
Yes.
So it's not defined as an emergency meeting, it's defined when the board can meet without 24-hour posting, and that's what that, yeah. So I think, again, that's why language will be emergency, I don't know if we should say the word meeting, but it's an emergency, action. Community, yeah, something like that, because it's just when you can go from. I think we should take the word meeting out of that.
So emergency convening?
Yeah, except it doesn't actually, so I would pull this language directly from what's in the open meeting law definition.
I think it is, but I can go back and look.
I think it's missing the piece about being able to meet without the 24-hour posting requirement.
If that was the case, you seem like you'd call like emergency actions.
Yeah.
And so if you need to take emergency actions and.
Okay.
So I think by definition, an an emergency meeting is a special meeting. So the emergency meeting is just when there's a situation involving something that makes notice and impractical or increase the likelihood or severity of the injury. You can have an emergency meeting.
Yeah, why don't we could just add it to special meeting then?
Yeah, just put it underneath it, yeah.
So you want to take this out and add it under special?
Yeah, and I think we want to use the
Yeah.
language that's in the code.
I can. I'll fix it.
That is most of the language.
Yeah, I think I was trying to find it real quick on this.
Here, it says involving injury or damage to persons or property, immediate financial loss.
Yeah.
Such.
Yep, looks like that's,
Yeah, I was pretty sure that's where we pulled it.
you want to indent that,
Yeah, we,
so it's like under the special?
or we can even make this.
I mean, do we want to say that is, that could be, it says above, not less than 24 hours, this could be less than 24 hours. Do we want to specifically say that?
I think I would consider read the action and just lay it down in paragraph and then indent it.
The special meeting shall be held without at least a 24-hour meeting and agenda notice unless an emergency exists.
Okay.
So we could put that up in the 24-hour and then.
Unless an emergency. Can we go to annual, or sorry, we're gonna finish up this meeting defined piece.
Yep.
Do you wanna just, do we even need, well, I think we, need to define that we can do it in those different means. So I think that's a good definition. Do we wanna just put that up above in the, just take that trustees may participate section and just put that up above work session and then get rid of the meeting defined?
So you're thinking, you want to put it here, or you want to put it after work sessions and retreats?
Up above. Yeah, and totally get rid of meeting defined, yes. And what I would do is I would actually, so I would put like a header in this that just says types of form, or wait, something like, oh, I guess we got this at the top. Oh, on the annual meeting, we don't just elect chair and vice chair, I believe we elect clerk
And treasurer.
and treasurer. What about secretary, or is that clerk?
That's the clerk.
Okay.
We have a whole list of.
That's laid out in here as well. Chairman, vice chairman, clerk, and treasurer.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other ones due to federal law, like the ADA, the Title IX,
Yeah. Oh, can we just put maybe at the link,
Title II, Title VI, and all
Can
those
we just say
people.
election of, at a minimum, chair, vice chair, clerk, and treasurer, and then if there's anything more than that, we can do that at that point too. So, because we have to do those four.
Well, we have to do all these others as well.
Not by Idaho code, though. Those are.
Those are generally federally required.
Yeah.
So, if for some reason we
Title IX.
never had any.
Yeah, compliance.
Title, yeah,
504 compliance.
ADA compliance, 4 IEP, all that.
Yep.
I mean, another way you could go is to say, before and after that, or something too. That's another way to write the same thing.
Okay with it, how it's written?
Yeah, can we put the code can we put the code sections at the end?
Yep, I can do that.
Yeah, you don't have to do it right now, but.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, next section, board meeting agenda and pre-meeting preparation. Trustee Ozuna made the comment, any two members of the board can call a special meeting, and that's covered above. I recommend deleting this sentence to encourage individual trustees to work with the chair on agenda items. You can see the sentence in question.
Are we gonna add the quorum stuff though? to the section before.
Add a definition of quorum posting.
I can pull the definition of statute on quorum.
Okay.
It's 33.510.3. Quorum for the transactions of business of the Board of Trustees shall consist of a majority of the members of the board unless otherwise provided by law. All questions shall be determined by a majority of the vote cast. The chairman of the board may vote in all cases. Do you want that?
No, I was just thinking, let's just put what the quorum is.
So use that first sentence? Or
Yeah.
just the majority of the board, quorum exists,
Yeah.
the majority of the board?
And then what we do when we.
And then we have to post it.
Yeah, so that was the part I was gonna add, which is just our stuff, not the stat. So put the statutory language and then that's what we do when we have a quorum.
You can read that.
Derek's gonna read it out loud.
Let's go. What else do you want to add?
And then put in the, I'm looking at Nikki, but.
What else, anything else you want to add?
When a quorum exists.
A notice of quorum?
A notice of quorum will be posted.
Other board members are present, are gathered, consists.
No, that's exactly, that's exactly.
Can we put in front of, a notice of
Oh, yeah,
quorum?
sorry.
We put when a quorum of the board may exist, a notice of quorum.
Or may occur.
May occur, yeah. Do we have a minimum requirement, 24 hours, Nikki?
It's supposed to be 24 hours and it's just a majority of the board.
Will you put that in there? Notice of quorum will be posted 24 hours prior to.
At least 24 hours.
24 days, years, just pick a.
I think just leave it at 24.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, do you want to add anything in there about if there's no official business happening, there won't be any minutes, or is that too much?
No, I think that's good. So in that same section, say what you said.
If no official business is being conducted, or no transactions of business being conducted, and no meeting minutes.
Yeah, what Sheena was saying.
Well, go ahead, Sheena, tell me what you want out there. What do you think?
So I would end that sentence, and then, should there be no transaction of business?
If no business of the board is scheduled or will be occurring, no meeting of the board will be held. Accordingly, no minutes will be taken. I wonder if under some of these things, we actually put like the verbiage of what we post and like a line for a blank. Do you know what I mean? Do you want me to email it to you? Is that easier to copy and paste?
Yeah, sure.
That's perfect.
That would be great. Okay. While you're emailing, I'll move down, and I'll circle back up to this. Is that clear for everybody? Okay. So back to Trustee Azuna's deletion of the sentence. Concerns on that? Essentially what we're saying is if board members want to have something added, work through the board chair to get that done. Okay.
That's how we do it.
Next, yeah, it's really just, this is just putting it in process. Next question or section, trustee up the
idea of adding a public comment section at every board meeting, to put it between board member updates and the discussion section, can be limited to a specific amount of time. Trustee Gopal's not here, so we'll wait for him to come back and we can tack him.
The other one.
Yeah.
We're removing the 2 board members make the request. Is that just cleaning up that language there, but still implying that that would still be the process followed if the board chair received 2 members?
Just from go ahead.
There was some discussion at our last meeting about in Idaho code, 2 board members could make a request for an agenda item, and then we couldn't find it in Idaho code.
Right.
And I was certain that I had seen it in there before, so I went back and looked, and it's 2 board members can call a special meeting.
Yes,
And then the agenda item of the special meeting.
yes,
So if 2 board members can call a special
yes.
meeting with an agenda item, they can get an agenda item. So since that's covered under a special meeting, I don't think it has to be here.
So I'm asking because that's in the policy on the 3rd reading coming up, right? The patron grievance.
Yes, we have,
At 2 board members.
we use that same 2 board members idea, that if 2 board members felt like this agreement should be heard by the board, then it would be heard. So I agree, there's that, we kind of use that same idea. We carried that 2 board member thing through, and like you said, it came back from this initially with a special meeting concept, that if 2 board members can call a special meeting, they should also be able to work through the board chair to get an agenda item added, and now we've used it even in the patron grievance world.
I just think it's, the special meeting actually gets you where you need to be. And, I mean, there's a lot of really practical kind of challenges with this. One is 2 board members can call a special meeting, but you still need a quorum to operate, which means if 3 other members don't show up, the meeting doesn't actually happen. So, I know, right? So, we've thought through this. So just practicality, if you hear from 2 board members about the same item as the chair, you should put it on the agenda. And if 2 board members don't get on the agenda and they want to call a special meeting for it, they absolutely have the right to do that through Idaho code. Same thing on the grievance piece of it. It's kind of the same thing, it's just a different, it's still a board agenda item to hear. So I guess I would leave it with what's in code, and practically the best way to operate, if these are operating protocols, you get 2 people asking for it, put it on the agenda, have the conversation. So
The more we can align with statute and code, I think kind of protects us, unless it's not allowing us to accomplish something we're trying to accomplish, and then we have a special rule. But I would agree that the special meeting allows us to accomplish what.
Just bring in the stuff Nikki had sent over.
Okay.
This kind of gives an example of what it would look like when we post a quorum, so people can understand that's just there.
Thank you. And we can actually just indent that, say that, like this is example.
So, are you guys, what are you feeling from, are you okay for removing that sentence and aligning that way?
Yeah.
Gina?
Yeah, perfect.
You're okay, you made the suggestion?
So, back to Trustee Rusty.
Trustee Rusty. I thought it was going to be done by the time I got back. No, I would really like us to look at, and here again, some of this I go back to, you know, how things were done when my kids were going to school and the particular district we were in, and especially during these times, I don't think you can be too inclusive with the public. But with that being said, do you have to have parameters on it? Because we don't want 5 hours of public comment before you ever get started. And so I went back and reviewed the district that my kids were in, and it was on there, and it was just, you have 30 minutes of
of public comment, and they can comment on anything unless there's a public hearing already on the agenda, then they have to wait for that public hearing. But otherwise, they can comment on anything that would be in the purview of the board. And the way that it was done previously, at least when my kids were there, was that you have 30 minutes. If you have, more people than giving each person 3 minutes to talk would do, then you just reduce the time at each person to allow everybody to get the opportunity in that 30 minutes. And obviously the board can extend that by 15 minutes if they needed to get 3, 4 more people in. But as a rule, there's 30 minutes at the beginning of every meeting. So.
Can I clarify?
Yeah.
To talk about agenda items or to talk about anything?
Talk about anything that's in the purview of the board, minus, personnel issues, things like that. But anything that theoretically, you would think the comments would be related to things that are probably on the agenda that night, but they wouldn't have to be. They could be comments on things that would be in the purview of the board.
So the way I've read it, just reading things, is that open meeting law for Idaho limits public input to discussion items. So anything on the discussion portion of the agenda, you could permit patron commentary. They have a 2-minute limit as to their speaking platform, but it generally pertains to just the discussion items, not the consent agenda or...
I actually think that would be fine too. My thought would be most people would probably come and want, if they're going to make comment, they would probably want to make comment about something that's going to be discussed that evening. So I would even be okay with that.
Yeah, if we opened it up beyond, my concern would be opening up beyond those discussion items. I'm worried about personnel issues coming into play, student issues coming into play. Those would be my big things that I think we just have to, if we were looking at doing that, we just clearly have to define, and then the board chair would have to be really on the toes to make sure. I just wouldn't want, my son was at school and Nikki Shepherd's went after my son and the school didn't do anything about it, and you're like, oh, that didn't get worse.
Yeah. You're right, and the example that I was using, at every meeting before the public comment section, there's like a paragraph read.
Yeah.
At every meeting that says what will be allowed.
It can't be abusive, it can't be derogatory.
And the chair, if it gets into a personnel or something, can shut down that public comment.
Mm-hmm.
For that reason. But if you just left it to items that were on discussion, then it kind of eliminates that.
Yeah, the challenge that I've always thought was that when you open up the nexus of public speaking on a public forum like this, it's really hard to close it back down. That's why we suddenly have this video thing we have to have now all the time, which is great, but we didn't have to have it before. It kind of was stressed upon us, and we have to have it because it's opened up that sphere of public input, or public perspective. The same thing goes with having a 30-minute speaking time. You can't close it down, or it's very difficult to close it down afterwards. So maybe having it, up to the board chair or the decision of the board to make it more flexible might be a better idea, just because then you don't have to always have it. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying. My thought was, by putting, whether it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, was that kind of, type of word I'm looking for, it kind of provides some upfront information for the people that are coming to the meeting, that, hey, we allot this much time at every meeting, rather than, well, the chair allowed 30 minutes last meeting, and, 45 minutes the next meeting, and, how come they didn't allow, so it kind of sets a time that, hey, this is our time for public comment, and we may not be able to get everybody in, but we're going to give 30 minutes, 40 minutes at every meeting.
Yeah, it's just, you're going to get into weeds.
You're going to get into, you can, and the board could choose to extend it by times they wanted to on an evening. I just think transparency is more important than ever today. Not that we're not transparent, but I don't know, sometimes I think.
But is it transparency, or is it, to provide somebody access to be able to talk about, say, book banning, or a particular teacher, or a particular, type of a subject that's being taught? and to suddenly just open that up to that forum, is that transparency or is that grievance? And to me, grievance kind of crosses that line where we don't really, we set a process to be able to have people go into the school first and then rise up to talk about those issues with the people who are most in touch with them, to have a process, to have it suddenly go right to the top, to the board and directly to the superintendent. Aren't we just undercutting our other process that we've created, our other policy?
I don't know if you are, which it sounds like from Idaho statute, we couldn't do what I had originally talked. It has to be on a discussion item. So that would eliminate any of that. They could only make a comment on something that was already on the agenda for discussion.
Let me, I've been thinking about this because, right, like sometimes we had long public comment, sometimes we didn't, and it was kind of the decision point was really around how many people we thought would show up. Can we get a good set of voices in the room to represent our total population? What else is on the agenda that we have to get done in that meeting? And all those variables kind of play into every one of those meetings. That being said, I've been thinking about this. I shared it with Lori. There are some topics where you kind of want to have a 5-hour session where you listen to, like, the first time around. I don't know that I wanted to have a 5-hour session every week, but
oh, why not?
the first time around on a topic, I mean, when we were trying to go back to school, when we were trying to reopen schools, right, and we had that meeting where we had the first public session. But at the same time, in those 3 minutes, you couldn't actually ask any questions of people. You couldn't get any more detail around what was going on. And one of the things that Bismarck had in theirs was the idea of a public forum, which is different than your public comment period at your board meeting. So in that public forum, that was actually a meeting designed specifically for a public forum, a communication with the public on major topics. I could see one on growth and boundary lines and stuff like that, where there's no board action and it's a conversation with the board where the public comes in. That is like kind of one set of meetings, and there's some major topics that impact your district that you want special focus on and feedback on. And then there's the public comment on agenda items, right, which I think we want, and what I would be worried about with the public comment and limiting it down is if we had like, because every meeting you may not have anybody testify on an agenda item. So let's just say we put 30 minutes in there. But then we have an agenda item where we have more than 30 minutes worth of people. Do you shut it off? Do you extend it? Do we limit ourselves in that situation? So I guess I'm kind of thinking through that. I think it'd be better for us to do, if we have a major topic, we do a public forum first, we get the input, we work through whatever actions are after that point, and then we have an agenda item where we have some action behind it. So in the order of process, we would do that public forum on a larger topic. And then on minor topics where somebody just, I don't know, has a question or didn't like the language in a policy, I don't know, we don't get a lot of things on those other agenda items. I don't know, I'm debating on the time limit, because once you put that time limit in place, you lose that flexibility to say add it or don't, and you set your agenda based on those time limits. So that's where it gets kind of, and we do have a unwritten rule of thumb that no good decision happens after 10 p.m. and we've proven that right every single time. So I like to try and keep us, well, just because it's hard to do even a motion, right, after 10 p.m. and get your language right.
Are you looking at me, Amy?
I'm with you, Rusty. I just can't make motions anymore. So, prior to you, I had the same thing. So, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking through that. But that's why I wanted to talk about that one section of the board, because I see a couple pieces. One is that public forum where you can have like feedback and conversation. One is where you just want to hear, kind of like what you were talking about, where it's on any topic, right? It's not an agenda topic. It's not something coming before the board. It's just, hey, we want some stakeholder groups or we want to go that. That's another one. And then the third one is specific agenda item before you take action. So, and I don't know, I'm kind of torn because I really, really want the public comment in there. And I think it's really hard to I think it's really hard for the public to hear it, feel like they were heard at the meeting when the action is, like when they happen in the same meeting, right? Because you're really sitting there at the, like getting all this comment and then trying to figure out, can you keep going down the same path or not? So I guess I think it'd be better to have, if we have major topics, to have like a public forum first and then have it influence the agenda for the next board meeting.
No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, and this is part of why I think the discussion is good. If the public comment is kind of curtailed to discussion items that are on the agenda, that really limits what people are going to really want to get up and talk about. Whereas if it's a more significant issue, and we'll just take the one that was all this year, a pandemic policy or something, okay, that definitely is probably one that's better to do as a forum, and the focus on this whole meeting is just that. Versus, if you look at our agenda like that we had for tonight, I can't imagine 30 minutes of people wanting to get up and say anything about it. The discussion items. So I think our discussion items somewhat kind of limits that a bit. From what I had first said about, hey, get up and just talk about anything in the purview of the board, yeah, that one probably could get, where do we stop it?
Oh, yeah.
But if it's just on the discussion items and the 30 minutes, and then everybody kind of, because right now they get none. So 30 minutes is.
They get no.
They can do written comment. Yeah. No, I should correct that. Yeah, they get a chance to give comment, but it's through online, and then we get it and we read them.
But look at tonight's agenda, Rusty. Look at the public comment that came in on tonight's agenda. I was actually reading through it. Not a single, I don't think there's anything on the agenda that was in the public comment. It was all non-public. It was COVID mask protocols, volunteers for substitute teachers, and a book at Centennial. And I guess that's what I would.
So you probably wouldn't even have any public comment. I mean, perhaps.
So ISBA in the clerk's manual recommends putting patron input on the agenda as just like, sorry, I can't see everybody, as just, it's always there. Approval of agenda, patron input is there, and then you would just acknowledge the fact that you've received the public comments, which does give people the opportunity to submit commentary on other items on the discussion agenda. And then I don't know if the clerk of the board checking the sign-in, because they have to sign in to leave comments by the meeting start time, and then taking that sign-in to see if there is anybody, and then the chair asks if there is anybody. I don't know if that's a healthy compromise. That's what the clerk's manual recommends, but by all means, there's district discretion.
That patron comment, is that restricted to the discussion items only also? So it's a kind of a verbiage thing. You still allow, so in the patron comment part, do you still allow people to come up and speak on a discussion item on the agenda?
If they're speaking in person, we limit it to a discussion item. When we take their comments online,
they can do it
we have other options where they can, the same as kind of emailing you if they chose to email you.
This sounds like kind of like what I was talking about. We're calling it patron comment instead of public comment.
Sounds like the additional stuff there is an acknowledgement of the written comments that come in.
During
that we could add. Yeah, acknowledgement of that.
I think I would, so I like the where they're going with the written comments. I also think if we were going to do this and we were going to put in ours, maybe a healthy, kind of following that line of thinking, but maybe a healthy compromise is patron comment on board discussion items is the title, so that we're really clear. And we put whatever time limit folks want to say. I think we're going to, I guess we could try it. These are our protocols, so we can change it. like if it's 30 minutes or 45 minutes. I think you do need a set time frame though, because when you're setting these agendas, you need to kind of know what that time frame is so that we don't keep the board too late.
Yeah.
And we get through the actions we need to get through.
Well, I would also, if you say it's 30 minutes, but if you have nobody sign up, you don't have to sit there for 30 minutes and wait, right? It says, okay, wait, nobody signed up, we're moving to the next part of our agenda. Because they would have to sign up to speak by the start of the meeting in order to
You
speak.
put time at the discretion of the chair.
Then you're back in the same boat, which is.
You mean 3 minutes versus 2 minutes
or chair says, oh, no minutes tonight. I mean, you're in the same boat, so I think if we're gonna do it, we just do it. Just say up to 30 minutes or up to 45 minutes, whatever you guys think, but.
I mean, I, of course, this may be just my optimism, but, I mean, I kind of feel like folks are, hey, we're in our effort to create another avenue to hear on discussion items, we have these other avenues. We're going to do this, but in trying to be efficient and respectful of people's time, we're going to limit it to this time frame, and that very well means that sometimes some people may not get an opportunity to speak based upon the time limit.
That certainly happens downtown, right? When we have situations where it's like people sign up and they tell you this meeting will be over at this time, and they go through first come, first serve, and they hit time and they're done. And you don't get to speak. I mean, there's been times when, and there are times when they say this is important enough that we're going to extend it. And I think there's even some language I saw that there is some discretion to extend that public comment period if it's a big situation, situation we want to hear from everybody. But I don't know, I think that's.
I support public comments at our meetings on discussion items.
In general, always have supported that.
I also think that we need some flexibility to change that. And I'll give a really specific example with COVID. We ended up in a situation where we took public comment early in the pandemic, and the people that were there to speak were comfortable in large crowds, right? They were more comfortable. People that were not going to come in to our buildings to give public testimony. And then because all of our testimony was one-sided, it looks like that's how everybody feels, even though our inbox was full of emails for people that felt differently that didn't want to be there in person. We couldn't accommodate that in a public comment kind of a session. Let's hope we are never in that situation again. But I do think that we need some flexibility because you just don't know. And where we're at today, I completely support public comment discussion items. I think it's important for us to get that information. I love the idea of the patron forums where we can have a larger period of time where we don't have regular business to go through, but we can have a period of time where we're listening to feedback on a lot of things COVID related. It could have been a good session for that. Boundary changes, maybe a good time for that. If we have major changes to our calendar ever, I mean, it'd be a good opportunity to get public input from a lot of people. That's where I'm at.
Greg, can you pull up what we recently had from Bismarck? Because I think the other piece about the public, so let's define terms. There's the we call it patron comment on the discussion item.
Discussion item on the.
Yeah. And then there was, they had public forums or community forums, I think is what actually that's the language we're using in ours, so let's use that language. They had, I like the way that they put the definition there because they actually have kind of a presentation of the topic from the administration first, and then they have a public discussion, so there's testimony, and actually the city council does this too in Meridian. There's testimony, but then the board members can ask those testifying questions. So your timing, and there's no agenda, right, other than that initial piece of it. So you just set your time limit and you go through the meeting through, like if you're going to set it for 4 hours or 5 hours, you do that. That works because in the way our public forums work today, somebody comes up and they tell you something for 3 minutes and you hear the same thing 5 times, but you never actually get to ask them any questions or understand what their real frustration is in some cases, and they're limited to the 3 minute they also don't always have all of the same information that we're sitting with, which is what I liked about these guys, is we give them kind of that, okay, here's the problem, or here's the issue that we have, let's talk through this in kind of a public session. I don't know which section it's in.
So this was just public participation.
There was something up above there with that, Brett, public participation, it said?
Yeah, this one was just a pretty much similar to what we have. And they have public hearings, which
would be like the budget or the...
This is it right here.
It's interesting because what they call a public hearing is a little different than how we've sometimes operated under public hearings, being like the budget. But in budget hearings, we are required to take public comment for that. And then they have consultants to the board, which is not, and then they have advisory committees to the board.
There's one in here where people actually got to go back and forth.
Yeah,
Comments. Remember that?
and I remember that too, but when I went back to look at it, it's not, so I don't know if we found it somewhere else and pulled that in, because after that, it gets into compensation, which we don't talk about board member compensation.
Well, why he's looking for that, yeah, I'm not, I hear what you're saying, Amy. I wouldn't want it to be a back and forth. It's an opportunity for people to come up and share their opinion.
This is basically just
a back and forth.
Yeah, but then it would really drag
This
out.
is basically gets into the chain of command stuff.
Oh, in a forum, yeah, totally different. In a forum would be totally different. Yeah, I'm just.
Yeah, I don't know.
Speaking of.
Because I remember the public forum language that we had talked about it at one point, but I don't know where that came from. It must not have come from Bismarck. It must have come from somewhere else. The initial one.
Yeah. For the one we got,
Way back. Yeah, so, no, that doesn't mean we can't, if we think public forums is something that as a board we want to do. I stayed on the conversation just to rub it in. You have to live in North Dakota. Yeah, so, I don't know, I think, because the advisory committees is different as well, right? That's more of a formal committee that we've set up to go, whatever it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the big differences. The public hearing is something required by law.
Yep.
Whereas public comment isn't.
And I can go back and look at, maybe we have another, what about, maybe I'll run down and grab that binder that we actually had at the retreat, maybe is it in there?
The summit?
Yeah.
It's in there. You want me to go get it?
Yeah, just to see if there was something else that we brought in.
Yeah, the only thing I would suggest actually is, I'm kind of going through a few quick pieces. Basically, once you open it up to say 30 minutes, it's really hard, almost, I mean, you really should go to Amy White on it. It's really hard to stop that, you know? So if, say, for instance, it's just contentious every time, or it's becoming longer, or a challenge, you lose your control because you lose your, I think the legal term is your public avenue of public speech, your nexus of public speech, right? So once you open up that nexus of public speech, then you basically lose control of that time, which is great. If that's, you want the input, all that, that's fine, it's your choice. I'm just saying that you might want to think it through with lawyers first, just to make sure you understand what you're getting to.
No, I hear you. What I kind of go back to is like in the state where I came from, and I won't say it out loud.
California?
You can get away with shutting down public comment there. You can get away with it. I mean, you talk about a place where, and they said it's on the agenda, there's 30 minutes, and they stop it at 30 minutes.
So I'm from Nevada. In our school district, we had public comment on every agenda, and there was no timing other than 3 minutes per person or 5 minutes per spokesperson for a group.
and it was on anything. It didn't have to be on a discussion item. It didn't have to be on an item on the agenda. However, it had that language in there saying it couldn't be abusive and all that, and it also couldn't be repetitive. So if we've already heard it, the board didn't want to hear it over and over again because they didn't limit it to 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And so we had meetings that went on for hours and hours, but that was how it was there in Nevada.
Good idea, that's excellent.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why I'm supportive of this time frame, as long as it's legal. The time frame, because, yeah, the city that I work for, the first literally 3 hours of every meeting would be public comment because they limited nothing and they gave everybody 3 minutes. And it would go as long as it had to go.
Why don't we do this? I think we have good consensus on having some sort of feedback on discussion items. We also have this public or community forum that we've partially defined in here. And that brings up a good point about, you come from a state that has certain laws, and you come from another state that has certain laws, and you have a state that has different laws. So having maybe our legal person help us draft something around those types of...
Around public forums.
And then maybe we can do a quick special meeting to adopt that section.
Sure.
Especially.
Outside of the changes, because one time when we had public comments meant 3 minutes, 5 years ago.
It's just, I mean, we had the deaf school.
Oh, yes, that, but we,
I just want to
yeah, that
Was
one.
that an agenda item or was it just something someone decided to talk about?
No, it was an agenda item. And the other one was the one you.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's the first one.
No, I mean, really, it's very rare, and in both cases, we wanted that feedback. We wanted all of it. Like, we wanted to hear from everybody that came. I don't think we have to, if we limit it to discussion items, I don't think we'd have to limit the time. Outside of things that are a pandemic.
Yeah.
Which you
It's an endemic now, I guess.
Yeah.
Which would give more time to that.
Sure.
Separate.
So on this one, are you comfortable with adding public comment and really delineating on discussion items within the agenda, within there, so people know that that's what they're making public comment on?
I think we're comfortable. I think it's a question, I'm comfortable without checking with legal. Sorry. I just think we don't know Idaho code like the lawyer does, and we probably want to make sure we don't do something that doesn't.
So one other thing just to add is, not further discussion, but to, as you look forward, I know Boise, when they went through this, they made a specific, I've heard the word public and the word patron, specifically where they didn't allow people that were not patrons to comment. Which, again, could be something that you consider, because you can get people not from here that want to hijack meetings in a case. And so they actually made the specific action that you had to be a patron for this to provide public comment.
Yeah, so they would probably make them get up there and state their address.
Yeah. And if you had patron input on discussion items there, that could also be the spot where we review any electronic submissions, right, that came in. Here's what came in over the last few days, and now here's we have this many people who signed up.
I would be real comfortable with, if we can just without that, get the policy, just changes, and then we just update this one, or whatever we do. Because I don't want to do that and then not have something come in and,
Sure.
Same thing with our, kind of frankly, with our community. We could have it in our, back here in the community forum section, we probably should adopt without that in it for now, and then do this public, this public input process together. Do you think, you could
Oh, yeah.
join us and maybe write something for
Oh,
us
yeah.
on those topics?
The only other,
Because I think we're going to get where you want to go. I just think we're better off to do it. Well, I think where we all want to go, but really rather than adopt something too fast.
agreed. The only other thing here, and Trustee Ozuna had asked the question on number 6, it said, the results of all votes and upon the request of a member, the vote of each member by name would be in the minutes. So we are not legally required to show in the minutes how each member voted, just what the results of the vote were. So it was a 3-2 vote or a 4-1 vote. We don't have to show, but then if a member of the board said, I would like to have it disclosed who voted which way, then we would put it. So I think what Renee asked was, don't we already show who voted? And looking back at the last handful of agendas, we have been saying, here was the vote by trustee individually. So I think
You've been doing that a long time before I was on the board.
well, I look back, there are many times where I found where it just said 4-1 vote, or a lot of times unanimous, but there's not been many times when the vote wasn't either a 4-1 or a unanimous vote. So I think really the question is, as a board, just making it the practice that every time we just post the minutes of how people voted.
Isn't how people voted public record? So then, yeah, why not have it?
Yeah, so that's kind of what's strike this language and just say including the vote of each member by name.
Even when it's unanimous?
I think if it's unanimous, you can just say unanimous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the reset.
He's absent the rest of the time.
I'm okay with either way. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that what we say is what we're doing.
Yep.
Well, it'd be good to be consistent.
Next, under executive sessions, there's a piece where here it says minutes of executive session. So what's there is a duplicate from page 4 under our minutes portion of the document. So the question is, do you want to remove this minutes of executive session from this section, from page 4, remove it from this page, or keep it in both places so you have it existing in both places?
Because if we're in a new section, we're in the.
Yeah, so it lives under this area of minutes, where we talk about minutes of executive session, and then under executive sessions, we also discuss the minutes of executive session. So we're.
Same language is probably, so you might just go to one section or the other.
Right. Yeah, okay.
I caught a grammar in that one.
What's that?
Caught a grammar in that one, be my 6 times.
Depends.
It's under the executive session, maybe help for, under item 2, charges brought against.
Oh, back down here.
Is it gone? Oh, no, it's in the executive section. It's in this one.
I think what we change it to is just, this board shall only hold executive sessions for reasons contained in law.
Okay.
Rather than.
All that section?
All that, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. Oh, this section here is where it's brought. Okay. Then we get into public participation in board meetings.
That's the one we're going to You guys.
And this was just after that conversation of, do we want to add the public hearing section and the advisory committees to the board section back in, or we want to just go ahead and wait till we get legal counsel's input and get her to write something up?
I think we want to have her to write something for us with those 3 types, right? There's
Yep.
the comment at board meeting, there's community forum, and then there's what you're calling a patron comment.
Yeah, patron comment, I would be okay with restricting it to people that are patrons of the district. I mean, that's kind of, you want to hear from them.
Okay. You got that, so we need to get with Amy on? Okay. Okay. I think we are down to.
Before we go off the consultant to the board.
Yeah.
We don't, this is a question for you guys. There are some times when we don't have to go through a whole, procurement process that hits a small dollar amount. Does this work for that? It doesn't limit us in any way?
I don't think it limits us in any way. I think because cost to the district is part of that proposal.
In that sentence, it says may require submission of a written proposal.
Yep. So I think it's general enough to allow for some flexibility depending on the situation. Policy Review Committee, because this is the newest kind of committee that we've had, there was some input on this one, and Renee brought up that we need to make sure this is how we're going to do it, that we note for the January 10th meeting that we will need to elect, the board will need to identify 2 board members to serve on policy review. So that needs to be an agenda item for the January 10th meeting, that the board will identify 2 trustees to serve.
My only thought on this one was where it says we'll meet a minimum of once a month on the first Thursday, and is that being too specific versus or will?
I like the specificity because it means we're gonna actually, people will put their calendar and agendas to get to it, which makes it, and then also the way we, other than, and clearly kind of threw a little wrench in this, but the way we were handling policy process before, it kind of felt like things were coming at different times. Like there wasn't like a methodical or process way of kind of putting things in front of the committee and then a board. And so you would get kind of this stuff thrown here or there, and it always kind of felt like chaos. So this actually creates some structure to adopting a committee policy. And prior to these guys being on the board until, there wasn't even any process around policy. So some policies didn't get reviewed for like 25 or 30 years.
Yeah.
So.
One of the nice parts we talked about is the opportunity for us to say, with that committee, we have nothing that admin is necessarily recommending for changes or additions right now. So let's look back at our policies and just start reviewing, start going through them. And maybe the policy review committee reviews the policy and says, we don't see any need for changes, but at least we could then bring it to the board and say, we reviewed it, we still feel like this policy works, and we can add to the bottom of that policy reviewed on whatever 2021 or 2022. So now it doesn't look like we haven't even looked at this policy for 25 years. So we have a systematic way to review that.
The only other thing that I was kind of hoping we would maybe add here, and maybe it is in there and I just didn't see it, is that the policy review committee would set a policy, like the list of policies that would be reviewed each year, so that like we're going to review the 1 and 200 section this year, or we're going to review the 3 and 400 section this year. Because we've had some policies that have come up multiple times, and some that still haven't come up, and we've been going through it for 4 or 5 years. So
we kind of did that in July when we set this originally up. We assigned board members to policies. That way, if there's a plethora of policies to go over, not 2 people on. This could be multiple committees.
So language-wise, I was thinking something around language that says, at a minimum, the policy review committee in January will set the review policies that will be reviewed for the year.
Sure.
And exceptions can be made by the policy review committee, something like that. And probably need to have a board and committee member updates on our agenda items, because that'll mean board members provide us.
So how do you say that? Where do you want?
Maybe we'll.
Maybe we'll identify policies to be reviewed at the first meeting in January.
I kind of think it's great to have a goal, but the reality of policies are going to be driven by.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just going to be, we're going to be constantly revising. So is it even worth the effort to try and say, here's the ones we're focusing on?
And then so down here I do say that policies the committee determines, or maybe we can change it, that the committee determines to review.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're right, because there's gonna be like, here's the ones we said we want to review this year, and then here's all the stuff that came up that forced us to review policies. I mean, we're gonna just continually have, something changes in the law, which means we have to go back and do a policy. I mean, those things are gonna occur.
Yeah. I don't know if the language should be, but it's like a, it's like, periodic and systematic, special review. Or you can just say at the very end, they'll set the policy year, and exceptions may be made by the policy review committee.
Or,
Section of policies to be reviewed, maybe. Exceptions will be made when needed.
I mean, kind of at the end of the day on this, you know, I kind of envision if I'm on the policy committee, I would probably say, hey, you know, work with the group, say, yeah, my goal is to get through half of the 300s this year. What about, it's not locked in stone, you haven't set that, that's just, hey, we're gonna try to tackle these this year.
Yeah, what if, I like this. Committee will identify the anticipated policies to be reviewed during the first meeting in January. Additional policies will be reviewed at the discretion of the board and committee.
Say the committee.
Because then if district administration says we really feel like we need to bring this policy forward, they bring it to the committee says, yep, this seems like something we need to cover, and they go for it and they bring it.
Yeah.
Can you add to be reviewed before the year, or? The reason that, is because then it gives the board members time to kind of think about some of those policies throughout the year.
Do we want to add on that standing committee our position that maybe isn't technically approved yet, or it is general counsel as a person on there?
And behind the two board members, as appointed by.
Part of the job description.
As appointed by the board.
Yeah, that'll save time. And the other part where flow of the readings, we could eliminate the legal part because that individual's going to be involved in the discussion. Yeah.
So you could take that section out?
You feel okay with those, if legal counsel's on the team, that we can take
Yeah.
these pieces out? There. School board memberships and organizations, we had this section in there, and then I think Trustee Johnson brought forward, this was really just talking about national school boards and Idaho school boards, but there's also the idea that board members are encouraged to participate in other community civic organizations, participate in chamber, and so.
We do it today, I don't know, that's.
Yeah.
And it's actually in our goals.
Yeah. Okay. Trustee Ozuna asked, so we talk about reimbursement to board members for travel expenses. We'll follow the travel expense reimbursements established by state law. Trustee Ozuna asked, should board members just follow the district's policy for travel and travel reimbursement?
They aren't the same.
I don't know, Dave, is there I think we typically.
I think it is. I think that like the mileage reimbursement rate refers to the allowable IRS mileage rate.
I always think law should trump policy, right? So, yeah. Okay. New board member orientation. Sure, we got to this one after she left. Trustee Ozuna says, let's discuss. Some challenges I can think of include confidential student information shared or end-of-year celebration appreciation event for departing board members. She's specifically referring to that section.
This is I remember last time we were talking about this, not speaking for Renee, but I think her thought was here is, you know, once you're sworn in, you kind of sign the ethics thing as a board member and everything, and before that time, you haven't signed that. So if there was something in an executive session or confidential that a new board member who hasn't taken their seat yet really wouldn't be not that they would do anything wrong, but they wouldn't be bound by the ethics thing that we've signed. I think that was what she mentioned last time.
And I guess what I mean, I think we obviously were inviting them to attend all meetings and functions of the board. If we were in an executive session, that wouldn't extend. They wouldn't be able to come and do an executive session, right?
No,
So that's.
To Rusty's point, I think where Renee's going,
Yeah.
This has come up, and if it's a student confidentiality, student tragedy, something like that, do we share that with the new board without confidentiality?
They don't have public record yet. That's where I see the biggest problem. All those exchanges, there's not that public record and public, and open, there's not the legal requirements. So let me talk you through how the legislature does it, because they get, I think they actually take office earlier though. But, they don't, so they do an orientation up front in the organizational session in that first part of December, and then they get all of their swearing in. Since we don't have that same thing, I think we should, as a courtesy, invite,
For sure.
as a courtesy, I was struggling with the, finality of the language. So in the interim between elections and actually sitting office, I don't think it should be board chair. I think it should say, new board members will be invited to attend board meetings and functions. And that, and I think that's probably good.
And will be included in correspondence, meetings, and functions of the board.
So the correspondence one is the one where you have the public record issue.
So would it be, so you're taking out the reports and communications part?
That's where you,
I think you can put at superintendent's discretion, share he gives the superintendent's update,
Sure.
Great. But
sometimes you put things in that update that you may not.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I worry about is, at that stage, or new board members would not know, may or may not know, open meeting laws, things like that. I just wouldn't want something to.
For their benefit as much as anybody's, right? I mean,
Can you take out the word all meetings and just put attend meetings and functions of the board?
Would you want noted in there, Amy, non-confidential meetings and functions of the board?
Yeah.
I mean, I think
better about that. I did add also this sentence here, based on this new, the board orientation that we did with district administration, it went really well, so it feels like a regular opportunity for us to continue that process.
I think the one thing I would ask is that you put superintendent and board chair.
Oh, sure. Good. We have an onboarding checklist. Renee, this idea of we need to make sure as part of the checklist that they obtain a graduation gown, because that's something that we always run into at the end of the year, that they don't have that, so.
And FYI, I gave mine to Lori, so.
Okay.
Twin size fits all, by the way.
Did you have the one with the pockets you can hold food in? Because
No,
that becomes really
I
important
have the
on
secret-
the three
that's
that you
secret
have,
pocket.
secret
That's
pocket one.
You guys feel?
Probably still has those mints in it.
My water bottle was in that pocket, your pocket.
You guys all right with those changes? A little change here as far as obtain electronic access to board materials, along with changing out, pick up any electronic equipment needed. Just little things just to say that those are one of the, more again, this is a checklist just for them to kind of walk through and say, yeah, these are things I need to do prior to.
You know, if I may.
Add email and badges on there. They get district issued email addresses, and then they get DSC badges.
Okay.
I think it's
District.
The Robert's Rules of Order, that's the one that, I'd love for it to be.
District email.
We don't follow that. I mean, we do, but we don't.
Who covered that? Did anybody cover that at orientation? Okay.
We'll have ISBA work on this and that, yeah.
Because we have a modified.
Can you go back
Sure.
to Brett?
Yeah.
What does it say? Board meeting checklist, I think we probably need some clarifying language that, orientation can include, any of the, just because we aren't doing all of it, we didn't do like Robert's Rule of Order.
So this is an onboarding checklist. It's not the orientation of what's going to be covered in orientation. This is just a checklist for a board member to say, do I have this? Do I have this? Have I done this? Has this been covered yet? And if not, who might I go to get that information?
When would it need to be completed by?
We don't have that necessarily listed. I think that's a question that,
Well, and they're all different too, like the oath of office, he has as the second bullet point, would be
Yep.
the annual meeting, the district badge, is really when IT has time, they're
Yep.
working on it, they're
Yep.
working on email addresses and laptops, so.
Let's do targeted completion by the end of January.
Because I think if you don't have open meeting laws and that stuff in January, that's not a good thing, so,
you want to put it here?
in January.
Okay. School board evaluation. What I have in here, there's an appendix later that has the ISBA school board evaluation. Renee asked whether we should actually have that in there as an appendix, or what, knowing that it may change, and then we would have to approve that change, or do we just reference that and we just know that ISBA's self-evaluation is the one to use?
Yeah, I would think if there was in the verbiage, the link, then the individual new board member could go to that link and look at it.
Sure.
That was quite a few extra pages, wasn't it?
Yeah, right, because I can just take this and just have this link directly to the Idaho School Board's page.
Yep.
Okay, I can do that. Okay. All right, I will just go back and do that here in a minute. Okay. Communication with the public. So trustee Kofeld asked, and I think Renee added something as well, that should there be a paragraph or statement that provides guidance for trustees in addressing individual questions or concerns from patrons? I pulled this area in red out of our patron grievance policy that I think talks about that lowest level and the chain of kind of command area, and put that in there. And then the rest of it is already what was there before.
I have one change.
Yep.
Under the, if the communication concerns a comment or concerns about the West Ada School Board, or that we don't have a policy that matters, it shall be referred to the West Ada School Board Chair, and I want to put and Vice Chair.
Where?
So, down right there.
This one? Oh, yeah. Got it.
The last section around that recommended under open meeting law, that section read weird.
Just a lot of words is what it is.
That word.
Can't be.
Okay, that's good.
You deleting, you deleting that, or?
I couldn't decide, because it's not harmful to have it, but it's just read weird.
This bottom section right here.
Because here's why, because at the end of the day, when you get a patron comment, one board member gets it, the way it's supposed to work is we all should have the same set of information, right? So this is saying don't forward that around, but then you have to provide for it unless it's in an open meeting setting. But then we don't actually always do that. So I was kind of concerned with limiting, and we've done that before. Sometimes we all get the same email, but we've done it before where somebody has got something and it's been just, there's no reply all, but it's just, here's the patron comment shared out Because sometimes somebody sends us something, like they might send it to me, and they address the whole board, but they forget to put the other 4 email addresses on, so I'm like, oh, well, it's addressed to all of us, everybody gets it, so here you go, kind of thing. So,
But then we're told not to reply all or
Yeah.
something, so I'm always afraid, I don't know.
you don't reply all. We should be better off to say, don't reply all, in the policy.
Well, and to that point, I was gonna say, like, when you guys are all emailed and you're all 5 on there, if you do reply all, then you're breaking notice of quorum and it becomes an open meeting. So I wonder if there needs to be verbiage in there, if there's not already, about which trustee, so if all of them are included, which trustee does reply. Is it the chair, is it the vice chair, is it the zone?
Was it the kind of informal thing that I've heard, maybe you've heard this before, is it whoever's the first on the CC list, or the to list? That makes it kind of easy, but although the problem is whoever's first on the list of 5, on the About Us page, that's usually the person that gets hold of it. Yeah, that might be a way to do it.
I usually, at least what I've done in the past is, I respond to a lot of those, I just hit reply. So it's just me responding to the person. Now, my response, if Sheena was to have responded also, I wouldn't have known, and her response could be a little different than mine. But because sometimes you don't know, like, without going through a lot of work, what zone they're in, because they might not say.
And sometimes they don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it covers that. You just have to read that first sentence.
4 times.
4 times to understand that. I mean, to ensure compliance under the open meeting law, it doesn't say that board members cannot communicate. It's recommended that board members not forward or discuss correspondence from the public with other board members outside the context of an open meeting, except as
This is a very long,
stipulated above.
yes.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I think clarity comes in with Amy White giving an open meeting law training, so everybody's on the same page.
I think that's what I struggled with most. When an email was sent to all of us, I just struggled because we were getting so many. It was impossible unless you do a blanket statement to everybody to respond to everyone. So it's like, I was at a point where I was just figuring out if they were my zone or not because I just couldn't, I didn't have the bandwidth. But then I'm worried that no one is sending a response.
We're going to solve that with the software tool that tells us somebody puts in their contact info, so you know where they're.
So are we okay leaving this really long sentence for now? And
I think
is there a suggestion for how to make it better?
No, I mean, I'm trying to look at it like, okay, if I was reading that first, would that have made sense that I shouldn't be sending it to everybody? It seems like it does.
Good. Under superintendent recruitment and appointment, this is a fairly general process. It just says that this, generally how things are going to be done. I know Trustee Johnson, at one point you had talked about, do we want to articulate the process that was used this last time? I don't know if that's really up to the board to decide. I think one of the challenges is now with a new board, the next time this comes up, will they want to follow that process from before, or do you just have here's in general how you might go about this? So I'm open to whatever you all want here.
I read it again. I'm going to suggest we remove it for now and talk through. Because I think it limits us and changes the way we did it this last time. Like, it has a whole bunch around criminal history record. The board chair, deputy shall charge the adjudication of the criminal history. Look.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is, criminal history record, I would have been in trouble.
Yeah, big time.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, we can certainly.
Second grade.
I didn't know I had that responsibility. I didn't check.
So you're saying strike this part and then just not have it in there at all for now?
I think if we want to do it later, but this one, hopefully we don't need it for a while, so.
It's already in policy.
Yeah. Is it in policy?
And I think there needs to be fair amount of flexibility here, because every time you're going to hire a new superintendent, what's going on in the district at the time, what you need, you need to adapt
Yep. Okay. So everybody comfortable with that?
strike that one.
And do that. And then we're down to the self-assessment. I'll be reviewing these pages and just having a link to this is what we'll have. Awesome.
Cool.
Okay.
You guys want to break and then go back in?
I'm trying to remember, were there things on here that we were gonna wait for Amy White to?
We deleted them out.
Okay, so there's things we're waiting.
And well, you can
presentations on.
add and bring it back forward for revision.
So 7:40 now, you guys want to be back in the room by 7:40?
Sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Recess for 10 minutes.
We tried. Gotta give you a good example.
I'll put it on my table. I've never been at that point. Where are you collecting?
All right, we'll come back from a break for session back into the board. Just for the record, Trustee Ozuna could stay through 7:15 tonight. She had a flight out, so she has an excused absence for the rest of the board meeting. And we've come back from our work session now, and I'll look over here to see if Mr. Heller we're prepared to act on the work session completion items on the board protocols. Okay. Do you want to display, or how do you want to do that?
I would need to send it to Troy if we want to display it. If you want to display it, I'd have to email it to Troy.
What is the board's purview?
Well,
Please? Yes, please.
Troy, I'll send it to you.
Leave it on that screen. What's that? Leave it on that camera. I'll have to do some things to make sure people can't see my email. Sorry, y'all, give me just a second.
Troy, will you go on the review and go into the final markup?
I'm not sure you're going to see much now on the final mark. There you go. Yeah, no markup.
No markup and no comments. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, so this final version. Mr. Heller, can I put you on the spot and just walk us through and kind of summarize where we're at for record?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And maybe I'll introduce. So the board decided this summer in a strategic offsite that we needed to document our procedures for how we operate, because a lot of the procedures had been word of mouth, and over a history of time, maybe there was some different interpretations or different understandings. So the board this summer, with support of staff, pulled a board procedural handbook from a couple different other school boards in other states, and then landed on one out of Bismarck as our starting point. From there, we looked at what was in the Bismarck handbook that fit for use in West Data, and created a draft procedural handbook that we've been reviewing in a couple work sessions now. The goal is to have this adopted tonight based on kind of the feedback from the work sessions, so that as we start into the next cycle, everybody has good clarity on how we'll operate going forward. So, and it's the board's purview to adopt and make changes to this as they see fit. So it's a board handbook solely for the use by the board. Well, Mr. Heller, I turn it over to you.
All right, so Madam Chair, trustees, here is, at least as of now, the air quote final version of the West Ada Public Schools School Board Operational Handbook. Again, this is something that serves as a complement to the policies that we have in place. The bulleted items are the items that live within this document. As of right now, this does not have an approval date. Potentially that could change tonight. Code of Ethics for Idaho School Board members, which comes straight from the Idaho School Boards Association. Idaho School Boards Association standards, along with the link that goes directly to that Idaho School Boards Association standards booklet. This details what those standards are, why they are important, and what they mean to the board. Operating protocols, this was something that came from the Bismarck School District and then was modified over the course of several meetings and input that was received from individual board members and as district administration reviewed that input. Identifies kind of what the role of the school board is versus what the role of the superintendent is, and then some very specific protocols that the board as a whole will follow. Looks like we missed a strikeout here, but insist that will, I'll change that from here, but I will get it changed. Again, this identifies those high-level protocols that exist for the board. This section identifies the method of election and how the reorganization meeting occurs in January, which is directly tied to Idaho Code Title 33, Chapter 5. This section identifies how the board will handle unexpired term of office and the procedure for filling vacancies if a board member were to resign or be unable to fill the rest of their term. Again, this is directly applied to our policy and Idaho Code. The next few pages are the Board of Trustees application in kind of a Word version of the document as opposed to the electronic version that we used in the past. I do believe that in the event of a vacancy, we would still use the electronic version to fill that application, but this at least allows those who are interested to see what will be required of them to complete the application. The next couple of pages detail the specifics of school board meetings, including the annual organizational meeting, that trustees may participate in meetings via electronic means, discusses the idea of a quorum and how a quorum is posted. For example, if the board is going to go to the day on the Hill, they're not going to be necessarily conducting business during that quorum, but we post that nonetheless. Discussions of items like work sessions and retreats, annual meetings, the difference between an annual regular meeting, a budget meeting, and a special meeting, and then the idea that there are times when a special meeting occurs where there's an emergency that allows the board to meet without the 24-hour notice period that is required by law. Next section details the board meeting agenda and pre-meeting preparation, so the work that is done, again, look, there's a strikeout to be removed, board meeting agenda and pre-meeting preparation that is done prior to posting the agenda. And then the example timeline exists in terms of how that process works. Also discussion of what the regular meeting agenda will be comprised of, how minutes will be taken and what will be included in those minutes, how minutes of executive session will be handled, and then the approval and publication of minutes. Additionally, details of executive session, who can be in attendance, the location, recording, and documents of those executive sessions. Minutes, again, of executive session is here, how to retain that information, and then the reasons why we can go into an executive session. And a lot of legal references for this particular piece. There's a section on public participation at board meetings.
I think we held this one, didn't we? For further.
If you'd like, we can complete. I wasn't sure if you wanted to strike this entire section for now. If we can, if that's what you guys, if that's what the board would like.
Yeah, I think the request was that this one come back with after legal review.
So we'll remove all of that.
Okay.
So this entire section will be removed for this time being until we get legal review. Short section on news coverage of board meetings and when board members receive requests from the news media. There is a section on how we handle consultants that will be brought in to advise the board. This advisory committees to the board is another section that we can remove. I think I would ask the board if they want to remove that, or if that is something that we want to continue to have within this for now.
When we have discussion, Brett will. Okay.
And then we have a section on the Policy Review Committee, which is a newer committee within the West Ada School District that we've been using for the last 6 months or so. And the process for electing or identifying the board members who will be assigned to the Policy Review Committee for the year, which will occur in January, and the systematic review process for reviewing policies. Section on school board membership in organizations, including Idaho School Boards and the National School Boards Association, and the encouragement for boards to participate in community and civic organizations. And then the board member development opportunity, encouraging board members to participate in meetings, conferences, and workshops, and the reimbursement process for those travel expenditures. And then a section on new board member orientation and onboarding checklist. Section on the school board evaluation, which currently utilizes the Idaho School Boards Association Board of Trustees self-evaluation tool, which is linked within the document. And then final is a section on board communication with the public, which is linked to our policies 203.3 and 401.16 and 402.5.
Okay. Just from a procedural standpoint, we went through this. There's a couple things that based on the work session, we might need to update before we get a final version that the board could adopt. So I was going to ask the board if you guys would mind if we delay the action, and we can go through the discussion items and then combine this in our action, or do it in our action item under item 9. And then that would give Mr. Heller a little time to make those changes and adjustments on public participation, and then get us that final version up in front of us with all the changes in it. I just, having gone through this a couple times, if we don't get the changes adopted and set for the record, it'll get confusing later on. The only thing I would ask of the board right now is to give some feedback to Mr. Heller on that advisory committee section, because I don't think we talked about that in the
we left it in the work session. I just want to make sure that the board's still thinking from a discussion standpoint that that should be left in, or if you want that held for the public participation section to come back to the board later. And I would just take feedback on that for Mr. Heller, so he knows which, we need to give him some direction.
That would be great.
Trustee Kofelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, as I reviewed the section is advisory committees to the board, I kind of see it being separate from the public participation piece, so I'm okay with it remaining.
Trustee Klopstein or Buffy?
And I would agree, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so we're good. So I think we'll, I'm going to ask the clerk, do we need to make an action to delay that action item till later? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so if the board would like to do that, what we need is a motion to delay item A under action item, or on agenda item 7, and move it towards under action items 9 on the agenda. So with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Chairman Johnson?
Trustee Kloppenstein.
I would move that we make discussion item A into action item C. Is that correct?
I think you need action item A will be action item C under item 9. They're both action items.
Okay, so under section 7, letter A, we're moving that to section 9, letter C. That would be my motion.
Okay. The motion's been made to postpone action item A under section 7 to be moved to section 9 of the agenda and be made action item C. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. Motion carries 4-0, 1 absent and excused. All right, good deal. We'll now move into section 8 of the agenda, discussion and policies, and I believe Mr. Stans. I don't know if I can get away with it, but I really feel like you should give us a ho, ho, ho.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair, trustees, and Dr. Bubb. So, second reading of policy 502.60, and per your request from the first reading, I sent this to our legal counsel. She reviewed, provided feedback, and here it is for your review. So I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Trustee Kofelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you identify pretty easily, if not a big deal, but the changes that the council made?
Yes, Trustee Kofelt, I apologize. The version I have has hers separated out from mine, so I can certainly point you to that. So first paragraph, lines 11 through 13, where it is the preference of West Ada School District. That is new. And then lines 20 through 23, where it says, in these cases, it shall be left to the determination of law enforcement. Those next few lines there, that is an update. Lines 27 through 29, school authorities have the right to conduct general inspection of all such property, including the personal effects left by their students on a regular basis without notice or the consent of the student and or parent/guardian. And then line 49 through 53, that is actually new information, so seizure of property. So hopefully that clarifies it for you.
Any other questions?
Just a real quick, totally minor change on line 27. I think it's spelled T-H-E-I-R, and I think it's T-H-E-R-E.
School authorities have the right, that one, including
Yeah.
the personal effect left there by students. Correct. That should be
That should be
T-H-E-R-E.
for the third reading. So, other than that, appreciate the legal counsel, because I think one of the things I was uncomfortable with this policy was it was so prescriptive that it had to be one way, and now there's some flexibility in law enforcement to make some determinations around when there's interview, who's included in that interview, where before I think we felt like our backs were at a corner and it had to be one way or the other. There's now some flexibility in this policy. So I appreciate that
Agreed.
review. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Merry Christmas. Sorry, I just think it looks so nice. Good. All right, next item on the agenda is patron grievance policy. Mr. Heller. I thought you were going to get a break for that other. I didn't realize you were up on here. Sorry.
It's all right. Madam Chair, Trustees, Dr. Bubb, the policy in front of you includes the changes recommended by board members during the second reading, as well as the Policy Review Committee and Legal Counsel. At this time, I will stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board? One of the things that we had some discussion on the work session that I think we probably need to have some discussion on here is, do you leave the language, I don't know what lines it's under, but it's highlighted, if 2 or more trustees notify the clerk that item should be heard by the board, then the matter will be placed on an upcoming board agenda as an executive session item. I just want to make sure, because we had some conversation around what's in Idaho code and what's not, that the board's still comfortable with that language based on our earlier discussion. So look for some feedback from board members on that. Trustee Kofelt.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm okay with the language. I'm just wondering if, at the end, it says as an executive session item, which it would be, but it would really be a special meeting because those two board members would need to call a special meeting. So I'm just looking for verbiage that we could add to it, because I'm okay with what's there.
Trustee Buffy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only comment on that, I agree with Trustee Colfelt, is, however, if there are 2 board members who believe that the grievance should be heard at the board level, if there is a regularly scheduled meeting coming up, then there wouldn't really be a need for a special meeting. So that's my only thought on that.
And I believe when we had the discussion, that was the intent, that it would just be at the next regularly scheduled board meeting, or when practicable. And we may decide, oh, the next board meeting's a day from now. We can't get it on this next meeting, but we'll put it on the meeting after that, the next upcoming board meeting.
Trustee Kofelt.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. You're right. That had escaped me. So with that, I'm fine with the language.
Trustee Kloppenstein.
Thank you very much, Chairman Johnson. I was curious, for this, because we're really talking about something that goes into executive session, do you think that, I don't think state code actually talks about special sessions, not executive session. And since 2 cannot actually go into an executive session, you need 3. Maybe this language doesn't quite fit.
Mm-hmm. I think we might even need 4. Yeah. Yeah, let me ask a question of the board members who reviewed this policy. Can you give us some background or discussion behind this language and what we're trying to accomplish with it? That would be helpful, I think, for me. Trustee Buffy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I remember correctly, this was involving if a grievance was brought to, there had to be an interpretation or a feeling by at least 2 board members that the grievance was valid and that it warranted board action or to be heard by the board, and that was the understanding I was under and I was the board member who recommended to put in the 2 or more trustees to align the language with the, is it on the next page, Mr. Hiller? We had it also under, we have it here under grievance against the superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
If 2 or more trustees advise the board clerk that they believe the complaint meets the definition of a grievance, then that would be on the next board agenda. So that's why we duplicated that language also in the previous section as well.
Thank you. I think the intent was good, right? I think what I'm understanding was we want to make sure if we have a couple board members who see a grievance that the board needs to review, they feel like the board needs to at least have the grievance hearing, that it gets an opportunity for that. Where I think I'm trying to figure out is can you force it? And I think the way that the process I'm thinking through this would be is that through following the code would be 2 board members would call a special meeting. I'm going through the force path, right? Let's just assume that normally, under normal circumstances, the board would go, yep, this makes sense, and go, but we're going to a worst case scenario where it has to be forced. 2 board members would call the special meeting. They would need 3 board members to show up because you still need a quorum for that special meeting to happen. And then at that meeting, the agenda item could be an action to hear this grievance, and then that grievance would then be heard. That action could then be moved into an actual grievance hearing in executive session, which would be either another board meeting or later that day. You do need a certain number of board members to go into quorum, and you need a certain, I think it's 4 to go into quorum for executive session, and it's 3 for quorum for a regular meeting. So what I'm concerned about is that we're putting in our policy something that we can't actually accomplish the way it's written. So maybe a suggestion on some language is that if 2 or more trustees advise the board clerk that they believe a complaint meets the definition of grievance, and such grievance is timely pursuant to the policy, then the matter will be placed before the board chair for consideration for an incoming meeting agenda. That's one option. That's the easiest option, and then there's all the other paths already available in code and law in the forced scenario. But this would be the, hey, let's just do this the right way and everybody has good intent scenario. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I only said the board chair because one of those was under the superintendent. I actually could just go down the board clerk and be done, but for review, because we have the agenda review process too. So, Trustee Kofelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think your change to the language accomplishes what's there, and I support what was there, so I'm good with that change.
So I think to do that, I don't know if anybody wrote that down, but we would have to, in the motion, have that language adjustment in the motion when we get to that action section.
So, Madam Chair, if I would just reiterate what you said. If 2 or more trustees advise the board clerk that they believe the complaint meets the definition of a grievance and such grievance is timely pursuant to this policy, the matter will be placed before the board chair for decision regarding placement on an upcoming board meeting agenda.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that would be in both sections.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Are you writing that in there, Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I always like it when it's easy to do motions. All right, any other comments or questions on this policy? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the last discussion item, and that's our rental fees policy. Mr. Gillen.
Chair, trustees, Dr. Bubb. The policy you have before you includes only minor changes from the last reading. I identified a few other spots where it referenced that we would charge the actual rate, and so those were changed to the rental agreement amount. Other than that, no other changes were proposed. If you remember from the previous board meeting, this is really step one of a longer process that includes an entire redesign of the rental process, including a new front-end web page that will allow rentals to happen on a more self-service basis. With that, I'll stand for any questions you have.
Thank you. Is there any questions, comments? Okay. Just a reminder, this one's on second reading, but it's also on the action items because the changes were minor and there's a more major policy review all coming in the next section. So we kind of went out of where there was recommended that the board try and adopt tonight if that was the board's desire. So, all right. With that, we'll move into action items under agenda 9 or area 9 of the agenda. So first item up on the action items is revised policy 203.3 patron grievance policy. And I'll let Mr. Heller put that on the screen for us so that the board members can. Drew's doing it. Do you need a second?
Okay, so the slight changes are in front of you. This is up at the top, adding in the language that the matter will be placed before the board chair for decision regarding placement on an upcoming board agenda as an executive session item. And then under grievances against the superintendent, the matter again will be placed before the board chair for decision regarding placement on an upcoming board meeting agenda.
I think we wanted the same language in both spots. I don't know if.
So this, the blue here is the same. The only difference between these is there's more additional language regarding if the matter is placed on a board agenda, et cetera. So if you go back up.
I think the concern is one requires it as an executive session, the other one, it just notates it. So I guess that's up to you and whoever makes the motion, but whether or not.
Sure, I can add.
I think you went opposite of the way we're expecting you to go. We'll leave it up to the motion maker, whoever that is.
Is that executive session part, is that in blue, is that new language there?
That is new, correct, right there.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we'll entertain any motions. Trustee Kofelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve revised policy 203.3 patron grievance with the addition of the language. Can you scroll up, Mr. Hill? I want to identify the two sections where we're going to do that. Okay, what section is that? That's under.
It's not really a section.
Let me ask this. What page is this one right here?
Page 2.
Page 2, and the other page is?
everybody dizzy. Page number 8.
Page number 8, okay. Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve revised policy 203.3, patron grievance, with the addition of the language identified on page 2 and 8 that states the matter will be placed before the board chair for decision regarding placement and as an executive session item.
Thank you. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that the patron grievance policy be adopted with red line changes as outlined. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries 4-0, 1 absent and excused. Thank you, Mr. Heller. All right, next action item up before the board is the revised policy 103.2 rental fees. And you may want to stay up there for that, the next one, the next action item. I don't know if you can share that too. So, okay. So with that, this policy is in front of the board for action. Would entertain any motions. Trustee Kofelt, your mic's still hot, so you're on.
I didn't say anything, yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve revised policy 1003.2 rental fees as presented this evening.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that the board approve revised policy 1003.2 for rental fees. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries 4-0, 1 absent and excused. And then we're on action item C, possible motions to address the matters considered in work session, which is the board protocols. And we'll let Mr. Heller and Troy work us through getting the screen shared.
There we go.
Hey.
So this version of the document removes the section on public participation in board meetings, and any other additional red line pieces that were missed from the work session have all been removed. We did leave the advisory committees in as was discussed.
Okay. Thank you. This is up for action for the board, and motion is in order. Trustee Kloppenstein.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Johnson. I would move that we approve the document we created during the work session as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that the board approve the West Ada School Board Procedures Handbook.
This document was never made available for public review or comment.
It's been, sorry. It's been moved and seconded that the West Ada School Board approve the Board Procedures Handbook. For the board, is there any discussion? Trustee Kofelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to point out that the public participation section that was removed, that during our work session, I would say it was pretty widely agreed upon that we're looking at ways to improve the public participation in the meetings, but we wanted to have the opportunity to take a look at this. And so we wanted to approve this document tonight, and after the review, we can add those in. So that, just on the surface, someone might see a public participation piece being removed and think we're removing it because we don't want it, but that's not the case.
Mr. Benetti, please, you're interrupting a public meeting. Mr. Benetti, I'm going to ask you to leave if you can't keep it to the quorum of the meeting. Please. You're not behaving in the manner that is representative of how this body operates, and I ask that you follow our protocols and our procedures. Thank you. Mr. Benetti, Dr. Bubb, would you assist me in this matter at this point? Thank you. Is there any other discussion? No. Well, I'm going to throw some in because I think it just points out just exactly what just happened is that the board has never had a set of protocols for how the board will operate. This is board operations. And so how to operate, how to manage public comment, how to make sure that we're working through making sure we have good, quality, equal, and open opportunity for public comment is really important. And I think it was great discussion, which work session was also available for public to listen in on. But it's the board's decision on how they operate. This isn't a how the public interacts with the board conversation. This is how the board chooses to operate in our meetings, how we and most of this is actually in Idaho code today. It's just not in one spot. So when you're a new board member, you don't know where to go to find this information. You don't know when you're getting onboarded what kind of information should be put in front of you. When we have a new appointment of a trustee, most board members on this board don't know how that happens because frankly, it doesn't happen that much. So the whole point of this document was to make sure that we documented what we already do today so that there is something available for everybody in the school system, in the public, in the board to look at. That doesn't mean that this document is a be-all, end-all. It means that this document actually has an opportunity to be changed in the future and that this board thought we wanted to have more input into the public comment section and how we interact with the public because we recognize that that's an opportunity for improvement. So with that, I would actually say that this board has done a very nice job of documenting what we already do today and is looking to include public comment in a different and better way in the future. So with that, is there any other comment? All right, Trustee Gofelt.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd just like to piggyback a little bit on what you said, and because I think that is a piece that can be maybe misunderstood this evening. And this is a handbook, as you mentioned, for the board. It outlines how we are doing business today so that as we're bringing on currently 2 new board members, and there's going to be, you know, in the future, there'll be more. So it's a working document that outlines. It's not the changing of policy, it's the identifying of how we're doing our business today. So I can appreciate our patrons' desire for transparency in the review and change of policy, which I am very much in favor of. But this is a handbook that's identifying how we do our business, and that's why I'm supportive of this evening.
Thank you. I 100% agree with you. All right, no other discussion. We will vote on this motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. Motion carries 4-0 with 1 absent and excused. We are now to the consent agenda section of the meeting, and Clerk Shepers, if you would just provide us with a little bit of update on the consent agenda, because I think the board needs to hear that before we make any motions.
Sure, there's an amended agenda. We've removed item H from the public agenda, recommendation to approve the Griffin slope easement due to Nampa district. And Mr. Gillen, if you want to elaborate, you can. Communicating with us earlier this afternoon that they would require a permanent easement, and our recommendation is for a temporary easement. So we need for more time to consult with the highway district to come to some type of compromise.
Thank you. Mr. Gillen, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay. I'll just clarify for kind of record keeping. So we can't amend the agenda after it's been posted, so without a board vote. So what I would ask for in the board member who makes the consent agenda motion is that we adopt the consent agenda minus item H. It would be what would be the appropriate motion for that. And I didn't mean to put Ms. Shepard on. I just want to, just language-wise, want to make sure we're following our open meeting requirements. And so with that, we're up to the consent agenda, and we'll entertain a motion. Trustee Buffy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move that we adopt the consent agenda minus item H, recommendation to approve Griffin Slope easement.
Thank you. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that the board adopt consent agenda without item H.
Is there any discussion? Trustee Kofelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to highlight one of the items, item Q, which is the recommendation to approve classified employee stipend. I just want to acknowledge from the time that Dr. Bubb and his administrative team has taken over, I've seen a real effort to recognize, not only through just visual recognition, but through compensation, through pay, the work that our certified and classified and all of our staff do. We recognize that there's challenges. We're not where we want to be in totality, but I know, and I think I speak for the board, and I appreciate every one of our teachers. I appreciate our classified staff, and I appreciate our bus drivers. And this particular consent item is utilizing money that was given to the districts from the governor's COVID relief funds to help retain and recruit positions that are difficult that we're seeing all across this state, and to recognize those folks. And so I appreciate the effort to recognize our hardworking folks that make this district operate every day. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. Motion carries 4-0, one absent and excused. All right, we're up to item number 11, future agenda items. Trustee Klopfenstein.
I just wanted to, Chairman Johnson, thank you very much. I was just curious, do you foresee in the next 2 weeks, or even next week, that we might have an additional meeting we might have to come back for the item we pulled out of the handbook?
Trustee Klopfenstein, we're going to see if we can make that happen or not. We'll let you know.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's going to be dependent upon access of available staff.
So, absolutely.
So, thank you. Any other future agenda items? All right. Trustee Klopfenstein, for your last time, maybe.
It would be an honor. At this point, I recommend that, or I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that the board adjourned. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. Motion carries 4-0, one absent and excused. Thank you. Good night.